Ooh, that's a quick transition there. No, we don't like the quick ones. All right, let's move all this shit away. All right, hopefully things are recording. They don't suck. I should have recorded things a little bit more delicately, but we'll see how it goes. And what else? All right, well, do. Still getting a little used to the old new laptop. Okay, I think that's okay. Hopefully everything's working. This is a different setup. The resolution of the screen is different. I've got a mic a little closer to me than I'd prefer. This might need some adjusting over time. We'll see. And because, my kids I'm at my parents' house. It's different. They're downstairs. I'm upstairs. They're fine. My dad is keeping half an eye on them, but I have to keep half an ear out. So sort of only half listening to music and half hearing out what's going on downstairs. So until this becomes normalized, I'll be a little distracted, but let's just persevere. Okay. Here is where we left off. And wow, I see a lot of data is moving. Ooh, now what's happening? Why am I dropping frames? Let's see. Let's see if I can stress things out. Does this make it happen? I mean, we'll see. Okay. Well, I'll ignore it for now. Watch down the VODs later. Alright, well, what are we going to do? Let's color. Let's do something crazy. It's a new setup. All my references aren't here. There's obviously like the question of here it is. So this was the link design. Twilight Princess just had a solid link design. I'm keeping with it. The whole thing I'm sort of putting forth is like, what if I was doing this? Like, it was a real job, and therefore my approach is like, say someone hired me from Nintendo to do this, what would I do? I definitely wouldn't reinvent the wheel every damn time. That said, I'd want the work that I did to be original as much as I could. So while referencing is limited, it is not non-existent. Let's pull open therefore. Yeah. Okay. Okay, you guys can't see that. Here we go. Okay, my coloring method is not just like a color picking color picking from reference coloring method, but at least when it comes to Link, it might seem that way just because I just want to keep things consistent. This is like the design. I can't. If I was hired to do this, they wouldn't want me to just pick random colors. Hold on, my stylus is in my bag. Okay, we'll see. Is this gonna work? Seems like it does. Okay. This is a little curious, like this Link part his hair that way, or does he part it the other way? All this looking good. Okay. Let's say that this color is the color of Link's tunic. I'm going to I really wonder if I should just make the resolution for this a little more dense, because this is a lot of this feels like there's information I'm missing out on compared to like my giant 24-inch Cintiq. But we'll be okay. All right, so this is Link. These are his fills. It's a mistake. Okay. Let's. This is like comic book coloring. And almost like everything else, that's interesting. A lot of wobbliness. Is it more wobbly if I do that? That's tricky. I'll have to sort this out. Hey, what's going on? You, you, unbeknownst to you, you sort of tipped a scale in the favor of coloring everything. You probably didn't indicate that when you were just randomly popping into my chat, but when you were like, "So I can't wait to see the color," you were like the 400th person to say that, and I've been a little sick of saying, "Well, I'm not going to color them. I'm just going to leave them black and white," and it was just something where now it may need to be different. But today we might be dealing with some growing pains because this setup is different than the one I was using last time, or I guess it was yesterday morning. But all my brushes are in like the wrong spot. Everything is a little bit, just a little bit imperfect, suboptimal. It takes time to, like if you had to start everything over from scratch with your tools. Here's a color filler. Okay, that's decent. But yeah, coloring process. I have a very good coloring, what I consider to be a very good coloring process. It's just not a fast one. Brad the Poutine Slayer is in the first time chat. Hello. Brad, have we met in real life? We may have. I know some Brads. Not a lot of Brads. There's no issue if we have or haven't. I'm just curious. Oh, we haven't met. Okay. Well, hey mate. I love the lingo. What time is it where you are, Brad? And Laya, thank you for popping into the stream. Today I'm coloring. It'll just be really haphazard because I haven't colored in 2 years and I have to remember how I did it, how I do everything. Also, the process will probably take 2 or 3 days. To color this one image, it'll probably take 2 or 3 days. But this is the start. 1:30, something like that. 1:30 in the morning or in the evening. This is how I geolocate people. You can observe the process. This is good. I've been known to do excellent color if I do it right, but it's a mysterious process. You don't want to miss anything. It's the morning. 1:30 in the morning where Brad the Poutine Slayer is. Your handle seems familiar though. Have I seen you around? Did I friend you randomly? Did I sometimes I'll go into other people's art chats and sometimes I go into other people's art chats and I'll discuss things and then people respond and then I'm like, okay, this person is alive and they're not a bot, so I'll friend them. And that's my sneaky way of sniping interesting folk into my into my stream. Maybe I met you in another stream. You have the memory of a goldfish. Wow, we have that in common. Like, if the computer didn't tell me that this was your first time in the chat, I'd have been like, Brad, it's been a while. How long's it been? Please enter voice chat. Okay, we're going to do a little something. This won't interfere with the art, but my buddy Zach is going to enter the chat. He's a storyboard artist like me in real life. Okay, hang on, Zach. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to turn off the music. Get a little discombobulated for a second. Zach and I are going to discuss a very important issue, which is I'm extremely vocal about this issue, and it's to do with in America, in the industry, the entertainment industry, there are unions that people can join, and the principal reason we do that is to receive things like pensions and healthcare, which are things that the most of the developed and even the undeveloped world get no matter what. So, or at least that seems to be the propaganda. Let me see here. Voice chat. Okay, I'm going to make a voice chat. I wonder how I do this. I'm allowing it. Now I will allow for. Wait, someone's there. You're there, Zach. You hear me? You hear me, Zach?
I hear you. Let me see if I can hear you on yeah, on your stream.
I think you're being heard on the stream. Talk for a second.
Hello, stream. Can you hear me?
Your thing is making the audio go wibbly wobble. All perfect. Okay. Yeah, I think you're set.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm gonna
Okay, great. Let me
quick
mute your stream. Okay.
quickly to answer Brad's question. What's the most fun project you've storyboarded?
Hello, Brad. Doing good. Doing good. Hey, Max. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Are you hearing me with a lot of lag?
What I do? Oh no, I don't think I hear you. Oh, I don't hear you in the Discord. Yeah, your
Oh.
Discord mic isn't. It's low, so I
Oh.
don't hear it.
Oh, oh,
Could be.
oh.
It could be
Okay.
my settings. Could be my settings.
It's probably
A lot of
yours.
time. I don't know why it
Yeah.
keeps reverting. Yeah, it was my settings. My bad. Okay.
Zach,
Say something.
fix your effing settings
Yeah,
already.
I don't.
Yeah.
They keep reverting. I fix them and then they unfix themselves.
All right, all right, all right. It's all good. Brad
Is there
asked
anything? Is there
about
anything else I can blame?
just I want to keep the discourse light. There's
I
some
blame the border.
cool.
The
Yeah,
border.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's the border security. So
Yeah.
the Brad was asking about what the most fun storyboard project I've ever worked on, and it's got to, even though it's a touchy subject for me now. I was a storyboard artist on Apex Legends, the game series, for several seasons, probably like
Oh
five
yeah.
or five or six or seven of the more recent seasons.
Yeah.
And then we had a conscious uncoupling from that connection, and they went in a different direction and stopped using me. So then now I'm back on the streets. I'm hustling. I'm hustling like a really hustling artist now. So one day I'll show more boards from that stuff. But in any case, that is to answer the question. So Zach, you were posting something about the national jurisdiction or the whatever, the illustrators and the other things.
Right.
What did you learn today that you were posting?
Well, I fell into a chat with a bunch of other with a bunch of other artists, and they all I didn't like this was happening separate from me and some of my circles. They in their own circles were talking about how they really wanted national jurisdiction, and I was like, hey, me too, us too.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like everyone wants it, you know. And then
Mm-hmm.
we were talking like, well, how do we actually make this a thing, and why isn't this a thing yet? And
Right.
I haven't really come across anyone who has been really against it. I mean, from time to time you meet someone who's they seem like a little iffy, like, well, I don't know if I want,
Mm-hmm.
everyone to be able to compete with me anymore. But those people are like, I feel
Fair
like they're
enough.
kind of increasingly falling into a minority. I feel like most people are, those who are really good and confident in what they can do. They're like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep working. And then people also want to have, and then those people who are really confident in their abilities, they also want to have the ability to move around the country and not be stuck in LA, because
Mm-hmm.
if for whatever reason LA and the organizations that work here and what's going on here, if they don't want to make themselves hospitable to artists and make it a viable place for us to live anymore, and
Right.
they want to keep sending our work out to other parts of the country, and then maybe some of us do want to live in other parts of the country and still have careers. And it'd be nice if that was an option. And right now, we don't get the same treatment as like art directors, for example. They can live anywhere and work anywhere, and it all contributes to pension and healthcare. Like, why don't we have that? So that's what a lot of people seem to be saying these days. So yeah,
That's there are a
something.
lot of interesting contradictions that like a lot of, I'm not probably going to shed any light on anything you're not aware of right now, but for instance, like our entire job, like as storyboard artists, like of course we draw for a living, but our output is essentially data. Like it can be put into an email and sent. Like our interactions can be data. That could be data via a via an internet connection, via a Zoom call, and then the output of that interact. Like our inputs are data and our outputs are data. There's really nothing stopping any artist from working on any project anywhere on the planet, and in fact, if there is anything stopping it, it might be things like only playing devil. So, just for the audiences, or anybody who happens to be listening to the stream, or just ourselves, just to clear the air, Zach and I are in the same union, so we're not like opposed to each other's interests or anything like that. We're,
Begrudgingly.
yeah, but like I hate to say it, but Zach and I are we bump elbows at certain events, and I don't know who let this guy in, but the reality is that we're not adversaries, but I have a different. I have some experience with with some perspectives on it. For instance, when it comes to and just to put it out there, when I was not in the union when my daughter got sick and she was diagnosed with cancer, and then I had to join the union in order to get the health insurance we needed to get my family through that really hard time, and that worked as advertised. However, now the industry is in such a state of contraction that the jobs that provided me that health insurance through union connections or whatever, those don't exist anymore. And so it really feels like in some ways those are I don't have that same access. Is my audio a little hot? Yeah, it looks like it is. Let me anybody can,
I,
yeah, let
I
me
hear
know
you
if
fine in
it's okay if
Discord. I
I'm
don't know about the stream though.
okay. Like I don't want to be like, I just see things popping into like the whatever feels like the red. I don't know.
Oh yeah, the red.
I'm really close to the mic today. So for what it
Here,
like,
let me
you're
let me check
you're
your
fine.
stream.
I think
Here, let me mute you in the Discord. Let me check your stream. Hold on.
yeah, Brad, just so you know,
Uh,
she's fine now. She's fine now. Most of what happened was 5 years ago, but she went through 2 years of cancer treatments. She was a baby when it happened, and so what? And so this is the interesting, in America, the health insurance is essentially that is supposed to be provided to you by your employer. Now the problem with that is that sick people can't work, which should be an obvious thing just in and of itself. And this is my problem with union health insurance is just because the union allows health insurance to provide health insurance to people who are essentially entertainment industry gig workers, you still have to be healthy or available in order to get that health insurance. So all the union health insurance did for me in the moment where it helped my daughter was it forced me to be working while my daughter may or may not have lived through her illness. And God forbid if it went the other way where she didn't survive, I would have spent 18 months working and not being with my family when I should have been. And so that is ultimately where I really have the divergence is, it's lovely if we can bestow union health insurance to everybody, but if we keep putting up these roadblocks and these milestones and make it so that like only healthy people can achieve health insurance, like that, like what is that, what does that, what sense does that make it? And I know Zach is not opposed to my points on these issues, but I'm always here to be the skeptical guy and be like, well, that sounds good, except how does it actually work, where it solves the issue that I went through. And I'm a biased guy. I went through this shit. I saw what happens in like the worst, craziest situations. So then when it happened to be so like when I see and hear like the good news, like there's where the union is expanding and creating all these new things, part of what I see is yes, that's good for these reasons, but what would be better is if we simply found a way in this country, since we're a first world nation, let's act like it, and not tie our health insurance to being able to to work 14-hour days, which is essentially what I had to do for 18 months straight in order to provide for my family at the time. And this is the kicker is
Yeah.
my wife is actually a doctor, but she had to walk away from her job in order to care for my daughter in the hospital. And what the and so the length, you can imagine some of this stuff. It's like the length of Cobra is like 18 months. Well, 18 months is the length of like most cancer treatments that are like stage 4 or whatever. So it's like the you can't just walk away from your job, keep your health insurance and afford it at the same time. Like they want to have these things like in place, but unless two people are working full time and getting health insurance through their employments, like this is a fucked up system. And I just want to advocate for people like that. And a lot of people who are artists aren't necessarily married. They're not necessarily coming from good family systems. It's a tricky thing. It would just be nicer overall if it could cover everything. That said, I know that's like several elections in the future, if ever. So I'm not gonna be like the you know,
Yeah.
and I'm not like a big political like socialism or whatever kind of guy. It's just like where I can see the flaws. That's where I see them, is where I see the reflection of what happened to me. That's it. So tell me what you learned, Zach, or a counter argument if you want to. But I'm just really curious um, what you
Well, yeah,
wanted
what
to
you
chat
said,
about. Yeah.
you know, it's it's not going to happen overnight, but it has to start somewhere, and people have to make
Hmm.
progress where they can, and people have to keep talking about it and keep working toward it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it's ever going to happen, it's going to have to start. It's going to have to happen sometime, and go
Hmm.
somewhere sometime.
Yeah.
So yeah, so even if
Something is better than
progress is
nothing. Yeah.
slow,
Yeah.
yeah, even if progress is slow, as long as we keep moving forward, then it'll happen. And I think that we owe people in the future to keep working toward it, because the kind of shit that we find ourselves in today is because people in the past didn't handle it.
Yeah.
And then millennials like to sit around and blame the boomers, but then one day the millennials are going to be the
Yeah.
eldest generation, and if we didn't work toward things in a positive way, then we're to blame.
Yeah.
But
There's there's
and,
something
and I don't
about
I don't want to be
being
the
hungry
yeah.
that like when you have that hunger in your belly and like you're young, you have energy, and it's like things aren't necessarily in front of you, like you're you're like driven to get it. But once you have it, it's sort of like, okay, I got mine. Other people want theirs too. That just feels like so much work. It's like, okay, yeah, they can handle it on their own. They're good. They'll figure it out. And and like that drive just isn't there. I'm speaking again from personal experience, where it was like once I had what I needed, I relaxed a lot, to the point where I was like, well, other people will figure out their own way, but it shouldn't be that way. And now that it's in danger of leaving, I'm like thinking again about, well, what about the smaller guy? Because now I'm the smaller guy again. I want it to be fair again. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is everyone can find themselves on one side or the other, and
Hmm.
they might go back and forth. And one thing that I see in the union is, it's interesting because the people who are like the people who are just really busy, who are like quote unquote really successful, and they're just doing their own thing, and they're like, I don't really care about the union.
Right.
It's just some
Hmm.
place that wants me to send them a check every now and then. I don't really care. It
Hmm.
doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
But then but then something changes, and then now they do rely on the system that has been at work behind everything the entire time, allowing that to even happen. Now they're
Hmm.
like, oh, what's going on? Let me go look at this, and then they realize, oh, this shit's broken as fuck.
Hmm. Yeah.
Why hasn't anyone been fixing it? And then they realize, oh, it's because anyone who could fix it isn't being involved, because
Hmm.
they've been well off enough to not need to come around and check on things,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's been left to a bunch of fucking assholes and idiots.
Right. Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
that you need the smart people, you need the capable people, the successful people. They need to take some time and come back around and make sure that things are working the way they should.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you have a bunch of fucking assholes running things, and
Right.
and then you might not feel it at the time, but it's like they're eroding the base under it all.
Yeah.
And then and then the sandcastle starts caving in here and there, and then you're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck's happening? Well,
Yeah. No, I
but
agree. Yeah.
yeah. And
Well,
there are people, and the thing is, there are some good people they're there trying to make good things happen. But if they don't
mhm,
get support from people, then
mhm,
they're not going to win against, against corruption, against idiots, against assholes. So
mhm,
they need us to be involved constantly. So it
mhm,
doesn't matter what level you are at in your career. If you are in a union or you're in some kind of organization, then
mhm.
you should be involved just to some extent. That's my
The
opinion.
these are truisms. You know, I hate to make exceptions for myself, but I find it nearly impossible. I guess it's not impossible, but my having small children, like everything that happens in the union and affects my it essentially affects my family and the our prospects on things, and yet because I have a family, I feel like non-family people are overrepresented in the. I mean, the anybody I suppose could be having kids, but the people who Zach, as far as I know, you don't have kids, and a lot of well, I guess a good amount of people do. It's just kids keep you busy with stuff that isn't the kind of
Y-
the union meetings and stuff like that, and how they don't seem very efficient. They're very slow. It feels like it's very frustrating. On the As someone who really hasn't been to many, if any, I don't think I've been to any, but I tried to listen in on some of the recent negotiation stuff, as you are aware. I didn't like what I heard, and it's all very frustrating. And I just wonder, like, what what's next? What did do you went to something yesterday, didn't you? Or did you try? Or I know there was something happening yesterday that I didn't get a chance to go to.
well, if it was yesterday, I didn't go to it because
Okay.
I was busy all day yesterday. But there was a board meeting yesterday,
Yeah. Well, that's kind of
and then there
what I
was
think I was
another
referring
committee
to.
meeting.
I went on the
Yeah.
website to look for it, and because it was happening that day, they didn't even have the listing for it on the website. Yeah,
Oh,
they had
that's like
every
the second time.
they had
They're
every
really bad
they
about that.
yeah they had the listing for August so they had today's listing yesterday, but they did not have yesterday's listing yesterday, and thus like the link that you posted in the Discord, that I was like, okay, Zach seems to have gotten a screenshot of that off the website, so I went to the website, and like it was listed. It's like all the fonts or whatever is there. It matched what you had posted, but it did not have the actual link to the Zoom. I couldn't register. I searched my email. I didn't see anything. I didn't. I just was sort of like, okay, well, I can't spend 40 minutes looking for something that I don't even know if I
Yeah.
care about. And so I gave
Do
up,
you?
and so that seems to be like that's been a frustration of mine too, where I'm just like, okay, I'm just constantly feeling stymied,
Yeah.
where efforts are rebuffed, and it's just discouragement, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen some of the similar stuff. I've been discouraged and frustrated too, trying to find links
Yeah.
and things that you're told should be there and available. You're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then you go to look for them and they're not there, and like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
wait. But
Yeah.
but like if you ever can't find something, then you can just email who, right? The T
What
guy.
Trey? Yeah, exactly. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. Email Trey.
well, I'm not doxing him by saying Trey, but I feel like there are um again there's this pattern of like passing the buck for the accountability. Um,
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know,
For sure.
it's like, is there like a Discord for our union? Because I've heard that there is, and yet I don't. I never got an invite. I don't know what's going on. There's
I heard
it.
that too.
I thought you had mentioned it, and I won't say who's supposed to be setting this stuff up, but it's like it just feels like everything is like pending or whatever. But like you blink an eye and years go past and nothing happens. And meanwhile, it's like for the sake of the chat, I'll say that they recently negotiated on the behalf of IATSE, which is this giant international quote unquote union that controls the theatrical and stage union, all the locals that Zach and I belong to, the illustrators version of it, and essentially they held up the artist as the sacrificial lamb to be more or less uh, sacrificed to the AI gods so that they can scrape data, use people who aren't artists to create art, and everything under the sun. AI has, whereas the Writers Guild struck over AI and the actors struck over AI, the IATSE, and we're in the same union as people who wrap up electrical cables and hang lights and stack pallets and stuff like that. All those people who don't care about AI got what they wanted. They got pay bumps, and everybody didn't have to strike. And we got to uh, get told that, hey, people get replaced sometimes, and that's just life, baby. That's showbiz, baby. I feel a little disenfranchised with union leadership based on some of that stuff, and I was very cynical about it before even, but yeah, that stuff didn't help. It's very I'm pessimistic about the future. Involvement aside, like in order to like get where things need to be, where like Zach, how long would it take for you to be in a position where instead of the people who sold us out to AI, we could have had you instead advocating for us and making a stand, you know? And if you did make a stand, what would happen? Like, or it just feels like there's, I don't know. It feels like we're in a union that's too big or like unwieldy or doesn't represent our interests. I'm not saying like when the shoe was on the other foot, for instance, 3 years ago, it didn't work out in our favor. But in this case, I feel like we got the short end of the stick, and I'm not happy about it.
Um,
You're like,
Sorry, what was
shut
so
up.
your question is
Like,
just general thoughts and feelings,
I don't
or
know.
how would it be
Yeah,
different if I was? Well, I will
I
say
mean,
this.
like you the sort. If I'm not wrong, it's sort of like we got to get involved, and it's like, well, let's say we get involved. What literally happens once we get involved? Are things actually solved? Like, the whole thing, like I remember it was like 4 years ago. It's like vote, everybody's got to fucking vote, everybody's got to fucking vote. Or it's not 4 years ago, I guess it was 8 years ago. 4 years ago um we got Biden into office instead of Trump. Great. But even before then, with Hillary, it was all about voting. Everybody's got to vote. Everybody's got to vote. Well, everybody did vote, and we got fucking Trump, you know? And so it's like, yes, everybody can vote, but then there are the electoral systems in play too that sort of skew things one way or another. And we're not necessarily better for getting involved, just by voting. And if voting is the way that change happens, it just feels like that is not the best. Feels like a
Yeah,
recipe for disappointment in some circumstances. So
I see what
that's why
you're saying.
that's why I'm cynical about this stuff. Is like, yeah, we could all get involved and
Right.
still get bad outcomes. Everybody could vote. It's like if literally the entire state of California votes in the presidential election, it doesn't sway things. It actually doesn't do anything. So, because
Gotcha.
yeah, I don't know. It's
Well,
frustrating.
the same system that you described that gave us Trump, even when everyone was voting, there's similar systems in the unions.
Yeah.
And yeah, like there's disproportional representation, and
Right.
that's actually why there's now a reform party within the unions
Oh,
that
cool.
wants to change things like that. Yeah, they want to make one vote to one vote, one person one vote, and because right now it is kind of like the electoral college where
Yeah.
some occupations have a disproportionate say.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So other people, like you said, other people have seen the same things that are off about the way things have been, and they are trying to get together and change
Yeah.
things.
Can you
So
tell? Can
so
you?
parents and what's that?
I was gonna ask, like, your you posted like that, the like illustrators union with like national jurisdiction or whatever. Was that part of IATSE or was that like a separate union thing?
Well, first of all, the reason I posted that is just to get people thinking and asking questions, just like you're asking questions now. Just put it in
Mm-hmm.
people's heads, to even
Mm-hmm.
think about it,
Mm-hmm.
and then the questions that they ask is going to help drive the conversation and direct the conversation. Right now, the most likely scenario, based on discussions I've had with other people is that it will be an extension of what is currently Local 800,
Okay.
which which is also known as the Art Directors Guild, but it's
Mm-hmm.
Local 800. People
Mm-hmm.
want to extend that jurisdiction so that it covers the whole country, and then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then you can live in you because other crafts within our own local have that. Like the art directors can live anywhere and work on union
Mm-hmm.
jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we have that? And then yeah, there's some people from the old, like more of the older days, who are like, well, I don't
Yeah.
want anyone in our union. But
Yeah.
those people are falling into a minority, and more and more people are saying, fine, if they can live anywhere, work anywhere, join from anywhere, that's fine,
Mm-hmm.
because I might wind up moving myself, or I have a good friend that I grew up with in school who's still
Mm-hmm.
in wherever, and they should be able to join the union too. They're better than all of you, and
Mm-hmm.
if people want to claim that they're so great that people
Mm-hmm.
can't do their job, that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. So then make it open to everyone, and they'll have to prove it. Otherwise, they're just hiding behind this wall
Mm-hmm.
around Los Angeles.
Right.
And it used to work in the old days when there was no online, quote unquote, online and technology and stuff, and you had to be here. It used to work then.
Yeah, I
It
agree.
doesn't work now.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not even benefiting the artists, really. It's benefiting a few artists, but really it's benefiting people who exploit artists. They're the
Mm-hmm.
ones who are benefiting from the way that things are currently set up. The fact that the,
Mm-hmm.
the union hasn't modernized, and the fact that this work can flow out to non-union
Yeah.
anywhere, even though it should have been union. And
Yeah.
Max, to what you were saying earlier, you're
Yeah.
like, you touched on the fact that these union jobs, they're not around anymore to be able
Mm-hmm.
to, allow someone like you or someone else to qualify for benefits.
Right.
One of the reasons those jobs are, I personally feel, I mean, I can't all the statistics in front of me, and it's,
Yeah. No,
but my
those numbers are
suspicion.
hidden, but I agree with you on this point. I agree with you on this point. The no,
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
keep
So
say what you're going to say, but I'm going to agree. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So my suspicion is that these jobs that should have been union, should have been
Mhm.
getting worked by you and by other union people who need those benefits for their families.
Mhm.
Those jobs, quote unquote, aren't there because they're
Mhm.
being hired out as non-union to workers when they should have been union.
Mhm.
And so, there's like this leakage, as I sometimes refer to it as, of this union work.
Mhm.
And some people might say, oh well, the you're saying non-union people shouldn't work those jobs. They need to work too. They need to
Mhm.
make a living too.
Mhm.
And so what I'm saying is, I'm not saying no. What I'm saying is those workers should be able to work the job as union, and for that job to pay them union and to pay into their benefits and their pension
Mhm.
like it should be,
Yeah.
because especially if it's commercial work, these people have the money.
Mhm.
They absolutely 5,000 times a million% have the
Mhm.
money.
Right.
They just don't want to pay it and don't feel like they have to pay it, because they can just go through some entity
Mhm.
and be able to get the job worked non-union instead, even though
Yeah.
by all rights it should have been union, and
Yeah.
the person, whoever works it, should be getting union benefits. They don't have to, so they don't, because
Mhm.
that's, to them, that's doing good business. If they don't have to pay more money, they won't. If there's a loophole or an exploit, they'll take it. That's,
Mhm.
to them, that's being a good business person.
Mhm.
That's my personal opinion. So the
Yeah.
solution is, if all this work keeps going out because it can be done from anywhere, then one of the
Mhm.
solutions is we'll make the union everywhere. So then, because now if you live in like some some city that's normally not eligible for union work, if a
Mhm.
union job comes your way, and hey, no, this probably should be union, but they're offering it to me, you
Mhm.
have no reason to turn it down. It's
Mhm.
work for you. You'll never be able to join that union anyway, so why would you turn it down? So
Mhm.
you'll take less money, you won't get union benefits, the employer will be able to pay you less and not have to pay benefits. Everyone, you know and they'll set it up like they're the savior coming in on a white horse.
Mhm.
Look at me coming in to offer you this pay and this job. Those people
Mhm.
in LA didn't want you to have it, but here you go. Oh, it
Mhm.
pays half what it should, and you don't get benefits. So you're welcome.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, the so then what you do is, if union jurisdiction extends across the whole country,
Mhm.
then that worker is going to say, well, wait a minute, now that's union. I want union pay for that. I'm going to report this, and then they'll get the union pay. Um, or they're not going to want to work it
Mm-hmm.
non-union if they know it's union, because the unions have this thing where if a non-union worker is working union knowingly, then it will
Mm-hmm.
disqualify them from joining the union.
Mm-hmm.
So that discourages them from participating in this exploitation scheme,
Mm-hmm.
um, because they would be disqualifying for themselves from ever joining. Which, because the union covers the entire country now, they actually could if they wanted to. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
before they couldn't, so they didn't care. But now they could if they wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
but they're going to disqualify themselves by undermining the union in this way. So that's how you potentially solve this problem. Um, and that's on the constructive side. That's on the growth side. On the other side, you do have this other increasing voices to actually enforce the union protected work, and make them pay union when they should.
Mm-hmm.
So it's two sides of the same coin, because some people might get confused about what my stance is, my policy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Zach, are you trying to say that we should stop non-union workers from working union,
Mm-hmm.
or because I'm like really big on like stopping the subcontracting that's happening,
Right.
and people might be confused, like, well, it sounds like you don't want non-union people to work union. Well,
Yeah.
no, the other side of that coin is I want also national jurisdiction, and I want people to have proper ways to join the union, because right now there aren't any. It's
R-
being treated like this really closed off thing, and the combination of these forces is what's allowed
Mm-hmm.
some people, a small group of people, to
Mm-hmm.
really benefit from it, to
Mm-hmm.
exploit it.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally don't think it should continue.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, sorry I kept talking.
No, it's okay. I
It's got all
so
wound up.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, like a lot. I think
All of it,
our
Max. You have to agree with all of it.
no,
What
I
don't
don't.
you agree with?
I don't agree with all of it. I don't agree with all of it.
What don't you agree with? What don't you
Well,
agree with?
there are some. It correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you sort of
You're
have.
wrong.
Uh, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. Well, we've had discussions in the past where, for instance, uh, the like, if we wouldn't, if we need to make more money as a as a profession, we all just need to simultaneously raise our prices, for instance. And I'm always fairly quick to point out that, like, raising prices will lower demand for what we do, and may in fact drive people to seek alternative solutions to their storyboard problems, including AI, or just skipping storyboards altogether if they were really on the fence about it. So, and we've had, I don't think we've, whereas I know we're friends and we agree on a lot of points. I think we have differing perspectives on that. And to an extent, I'll
Raising
say,
prices.
well, but I also want to caveat that, like, I agree that I should be paid more for what I do, and I think you should too. And I think that, to an extent, what you're saying is true, but there will be trade-offs in any economic sort of pull one lever. There's going to be another lever that comes down. There's not like just pull all these levers, and it's like those old. I mean, you're my age, Zach. Did you
Max.
ever did you ever play Mist? The
Yeah, I
old.
remember missed.
Well,
I remember.
there would be things like, okay, well, all you in order to just make all three levers, pull all three levers to the right, and then the door opens. That's all you have to do. So you pull one lever to the right, and then, like, another lever goes left. You know, things work in counterbalances, and so what you're describing is like something will happen if what you want to come true happens, but it may be unintentional, and it may actually be worse for us. So it's just tricky. It's tricky where I don't necessarily throw my weight behind, like, yeah, all we got to do is raise prices. Well, that might be good or it might be bad. Maybe it doubles the amount of money that I make. Maybe it actually reduces the money I make and I get less work overall, and as a result my skills atrophy because I'm less busy, and it gives people incentive to look into other options, and maybe those other options include sending work to, Antarctica. I'm trying to think of, like, the farthest place on the planet where that hasn't been, like, outsourced or something. They get the penguins to do it or
Hmm.
something like that. All I'm saying is it's like there are going to be advantages for people, good and bad, to fling open the doors, and anybody in, and then it's like, again, where do you draw the lines? Is it the whole United States is open? Is it whole North America? Is it whole Western Hemisphere? Is it the entire planet can join the union? Like, I'm curious, where do you see the line being drawn and why? Because I'm gonna be a philosopher here. I want to know. I want to find the rule that makes you see, or me see, where, like, where my uncomfortable zone is. Like, if it's like I don't love the fact that, and this is just me. It's like I'm born and raised in LA. So if people move here and they take jobs that like could have belonged to my friends growing up, but because people moved here and took those jobs, my friends couldn't afford to live here, so they all moved away. That makes me sad. Now that's a big stretch. Like, that presumes I had any friends to begin with, which is probably not true. But I think what is true is that, like, perhaps for some people, some of this might ring true, and then I just don't know if does it solve, like, it might be good for most people. Is it better for me, or is it really that good for everybody if they can access things? Like, let's say people in, because there's some extremely talented artists, storyboard artists, that live in Canada, and theoretically IATSE's an international institution. They're incredibly good at what they do. They're in North America. Canada, some of these artists are less than 50 miles from the border of United States. Can they be in the union? And then, if so, like, what does that, does that force them to be in the union if they're working on movies? I don't think I'm doxing anybody by saying it's like Dan Milligan is a very, public storyboard artist figure. He's public on Facebook, public on all the whatevers. He's in magazines and such like that. He's amazing. He works on Planet of the Apes. As far as I know, he's not in the union. And, why? Like, would you keep him out of the union? Would you force him to be in the union? What incentive does he have to be in the union when he already gets, via living in Canada, being a Canadian citizen, gets the free healthcare, gets those benefits, gets the entitlements that being in Canada gets you? What's the incentive? Does it, can we say that, like being, like if some states have more benefit, like, here's my problem is we're making this the union's problem when this is really like aren't, this just occurred to me now, but like, couldn't all this be fixed just by eliminating the tax incentives for like film industries to be relocating to Georgia in the first place? Would they really be filming in Georgia, which has imperfect weather, versus Los Angeles, if it weren't for the tax incentives? Isn't it always, when you chase the money, isn't it always the tax incentives? But then we end up arguing about benefits and union jurisdictions for some reason. LA has perfect weather. It's perfect to be here and shooting here 365 days a week, give or take 5 days. And there's a reason, like, LA was the center of this stuff. You can shoot outdoors any time of year, pretty much, unless you're next to an airport. But the but when you start introducing tax incentives, all of a sudden you're going off to all these different places, and other countries do it too, and and the tax exempt incentives are probably more powerful than any of the other factors involved, and or like inflation and the stupid exchange rates and whatnot. There's only so much, like, power, like, expanding or contracting the union influence can do. Ultimately, I feel like this is a battle. Like, we're fighting the battle, like, over here, but like the big battle is like we're like ants having a battle, and like the humans are waging a war. It's like one thing kind of matters, but it doesn't really. It's not the thing that really matters. It's just a thought. Boom, I
Max, when you
stumped
work
you.
a
I
commercial,
stumped you. No, I'm just
Max,
kidding. Yeah,
Max. Oh no,
yeah,
you cover like a dozen
yeah. I
things,
did.
and I'm
I
not.
got
I'm
on a
trying to
rant.
think
I
of
got on a rant.
which of the dozen things I'm
Yeah,
responding to.
yeah. You don't have to
Max,
respond
what
to any.
Max? The work that we do
Hmm.
has extremely high value.
Hmm.
The fact that people are able to turn it into a daily position and extract all of that value out of us for a meager wage
Hmm.
is a is a mistake, in my
Hmm.
opinion. Like, could someone come along and work you every day to do storyboards, and you pay, you get paid, as much or less than a lot of other crew? Yeah, they could, but is that the way it's supposed to be? I don't think so. Nor should anyone who works in the film industry be treating it like a job that they're supposed to work 5 days a week for almost every month out of the year, because it's not that kind of job, because we pull crazy hours.
Right. Right.
Like, film crew works 12-hour days, like, standard,
Right.
if not
Yeah.
more. And
Yeah,
you're
that's
not
true.
supposed you're not and I have a different experience than a lot of
Right.
other people in, or
Hmm.
at least in IMA. Art directors
Hmm.
obviously are on set, but at least illustrators.
Hmm.
I've worked on film crew, and I know what that's like, and I know that that's not the type of job that you're supposed to be doing, like a normal job.
Right.
Because like a quote unquote normal job, you get there, what do they say, 9 to 5. You
Hmm.
get there at 9, you're off by 5. You commute home, you have dinner with your family.
Hmm.
You watch a movie or something, you go to sleep, and then you have weekends off. If you work a film crew job, you're gone before the sun comes up, and you're home, after it's set. And you're not supposed to work that way for the majority of the year.
Right.
But if with wages too low, people have to do that, and that's why you have chronic health problems, multiple failed divorces, estranged children, all
Hmm.
these problems. I know a career script supervisor who's like, all the script supervisors know who he is. He's had a
Hmm.
decent career if
Hmm.
you look at like the jobs that he's done,
Hmm.
but he's fucking homeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I look at people like that, and I think, they
Hmm.
had a career, they knew what they were doing, they were competent, they made
Hmm.
money,
Yeah.
and still this is where they wind up.
Hmm.
Like, why is this a thing? And who knows if addictions or other things were involved, but the thing is, his case isn't unique. It's a lot of film workers.
Yeah. No,
So
I see. I like. I do agree with what you're saying there. Um, I just think it's really tricky to say that like the demand like demanding Ben. I mean, this is tricky. So it's just really tricky. The the whole of it's not necessarily true. I'm not, and I don't simp for like the producers or anything like that, but it's not necessarily true that like they just have all the money in the world at their disposal to like make this other stuff happen. Like, yes, like Amazon on paper has all the money in the world to make this stuff happen, but that's like speculative cash. Like, to be honest, like their film or entertainment departments or even Netflix's, it's like that uh, it's a tricky business to make money in, and the margins on commercials for my employers were so small that one time I made a joke that I'm like, why are you guys even making like their budget for like a commercial was like $400,000 or something like that, and they were like scrambling to like pinch every penny they could. And I'm like, sort of silly to make commercials for $400,000 when you could just buy an apartment building in Georgia for the same amount of money and like get a return on investment that was probably 10 times that in 10 years. And the whole room went quiet. And everybody realized it's like it's true. We're all in the wrong business for actually making money. It's not it's this is a really strange kind of environment, and like there and what I kind of think is like the more layers of complexity, like unions on top of benefits on top of whatever, it makes it really tricky. What I'd love to it's just sort of like um the it's a it's a cat and mouse game to say like we want these benefits. Well, then the jobs will just go elsewhere where they don't have to pay the thing.
Ma-
Yeah, go
Max,
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
using the $400,000 budget as an example,
Sure.
that is like a small fraction of the money that they spend to actually put that ad out there. The money
Oh,
they actually
sure,
spend to
sure. Like
market
the
that
ad
ad is
buy,
like
yeah.
multiple times that.
For
Yeah,
sure, for sure, yeah.
and the reason that any budgets are small in the first place is because
Hmm.
the production company made that bid for that amount.
Yeah,
And the reason it's so low is because that's how low they figured they could get it made
that's true.
with people who are willing to accept the lowest wages.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
If every production company came forward and their bids were higher because they knew that they couldn't get anyone to work for less, then the
Uh-huh.
lowest of the low budgets would always be higher than what we think they are. The reason they're so low is because they know they can get people to work for that amount, and that's how they win the bid, and that's why people get paid what they get paid.
Right. And it's like a classic like race to the bottom equation from that point on,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, no,
And
I
I agree,
agree.
part of our relationship as storyboard artists, and this is a mentality that I try to facilitate, and promote is we do work with the directors and the producers, and they are supposed to be our friends.
Hmm.
And
I mean,
the
maybe.
better a relationship we have with them, the better we're both off.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so we do. So I do it too. I keep in mind their realities, and I communicate clearly. What the expenses are projected to be like, and I work with them on their budget when I need to. If they somehow they're working with a lower budget than they normally do, and
Hmm.
I tell them, okay, next time I'll expect my full rate, and then they do come
Uh-huh.
back with the full rate because for
Right.
whatever reason that was truly a one off that
Yeah.
it was some small job they pulled out of somewhere that they couldn't pay what they normally pay.
Sure.
So yeah, so we have a working relationship with them, but by and large, the reason that they have that money, and my girlfriend taught me this because she's a
Hmm.
project manager for an international publishing company.
Hmm.
Sh- they have what they put in their budget for you.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
money is there for you, and they don't care as long as it doesn't go over that amount. Because if it
Yeah.
does go over that amount, they made a bid for the job. They do have a finite amount to work with, and
Yeah.
that money has to come from somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And yes, they do budget in like windows and pillows for themselves for
Hmm.
these contingencies. And sometimes, as storyboard artists, they pay us for 3 days, but really they had 4 days budgeted for us, or who knows, maybe
Right.
five, just in
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
And then that money doesn't get spent, so that goes someplace else if it doesn't go towards us. But originally, on paper, they earmarked that money for us.
Hmm.
So they had, and because I would feel bad, because and she could tell, because I would get a little uneasy about like asking for money, and
Hmm.
she made me understand the money
Hmm.
is there for us, it's
Yeah.
budgeted for us, it's ours, and we
Right.
take it because that's
Hmm.
what we're worth, and that's why they hired us, and we get paid, and that's business.
Hmm.
So, so if the discussion is like, oh well, they don't have a lot of money, to pay us, well, that's because they won the job, they won the bid by not budgeting enough for you in the first place.
Hmm.
And so,
Okay.
it's never, it can it can seem simple at sometimes, but like, really there's multiple factors at play. And for me, the bottom line is, I have an awareness of what other film crews getting paid on commercials,
Hmm.
and I know that for us as storyboard artists, we should be getting as much or more than pretty much, a lot of them, if not most of them. And most of
Right.
them are getting at least a minimum $700 minimum
Hmm.
for a commercial per day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in my mind, there should be no scenario in which we're making less than that, especially since we're involved in the creative. We're talking directly to the director, the producer. We're incorporating client notes. Like the whole thing is getting made because that's how we drew it.
Right.
Like there's no reason that we should be getting paid less than somebody who sits around half the day on their phone and then moves something when they get asked.
Hmm. No,
Like,
I agree.
it doesn't make sense to me. And other people don't have my, and I know other people don't have my background, so they don't see things quite the same way. And they're like, and they might think, well, I don't feel comfortable getting paid that much because I work all the time and I'm going to be making like all this money. I don't know if I deserve all that. Well, I would say
Hmm.
yes, you do. Like,
Hmm.
this is how much money we get paid. We should get paid when we work. And if you're fortunate
Hmm.
enough to be working that many days, then congratulations, you fucking won,
Hmm.
and you should get the rewards. And then the rest of
Hmm.
us who maybe don't work as much, we
Hmm.
should still be making decent money.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't have to, like if you have a couple commercials a month and you're an adult, then that should be able to cover most of your expenses or all of your expenses, to actually have a real life.
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way the commercial world is supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, then that's why a lot of us are falling out, and a lot of us don't have anything, and
Mm-hmm.
why the work is going to other places where people can actually try to afford to live on what the job is paying, because it's not paying what it should.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't have been that way, and it's deteriorated over the last over decade. And if you ask the older artists in the industry
Mm-hmm.
how pay is today compared to what it used to be, they'll
Yeah.
say they'll say fuck, that's what I was making like over 20, 30 years ago. It's the same rate. And with
Right.
inflation and everything,
Mm-hmm.
it's gone down. We as a result, we've been paid less. $100 isn't what it used to be. $1,000 isn't what it used to be.
No,
uh
totally.
you know yeah, I'm a victim of it too. I keep seeing numbers like how I used to see numbers like fresh out of high school and college when I had to like learn how to budget for the first time. I
Mm-hmm.
still see numbers in that light, but the numbers today aren't anywhere near what they were back then. So
It's
yeah,
interesting.
I stand firm. I still believe,
Mm-hmm.
a storyboard artist should be making over $1,000 a day. I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's what we should make. And all these other factors that people talk about, that's to me that's secondary. And yeah, you're gonna have some like super dinky small productions, and they do that. That's how they carve themselves out, is they're able to source labor and talent for like way less. and
Mm-hmm.
and there's gonna be those situations too.
Mm-hmm.
but but by and large, I think we deserve a lot. um
I agree.
and I don't think it's wrong to say that and to ask for that. Um and then I'll shut up, bro. I'll shut up soon.
No,
But
no, to
then like
keep.
the other thing else,
I
yeah.
I
uh,
like I agree with what you're saying. I feel like like I feel like I'm worth $1,000 a day. I
you
wish
you definitely are.
I definitely think so too. The there's something about right now, like this. And I'm not too worried, like overall. Here's some good news that just landed yesterday because I didn't work at all this week, like not even a single hour. And forget the union stuff. Aside from the conversation, I haven't worked. I've maybe worked 4 union days in like 8 months or something like that. It's just like, at this point, it's just sort of like, okay, I'm back to, I'm still in the union. I'm still going to pay my dues as long as I can until it really just doesn't make sense. But right now, where it just is right now, I'm not holding out hope for all that work that I used to get to just come back. That said, because like the people who were at those former entities that used to hire me, like they're laid off. Like the attrition
Oh.
rate, yeah, like so it used to be that like and this was a normal thing for me. It was like I would go to a studio and like I would make great in-person contacts, and like there would be the person who actually does the emails that books people. I'd find them, I'd schmooze them up, I'd chat them up, I'd rizz them up a bit, just making sure that everybody loved me and remembered me. And, and then I'd meet the producer. By and large, these were women. Sometimes they were attractive women. You'd get the opportunity to, compliment their hair, whatever you got to do. And then you meet the director. By and large, these are, nerdy, insecure men. You just copy whatever they say, emulate them, let them know you're listening, and then you're not a threat. And it was like there was this great formula that I had where like wherever I went, I could figure it out and make good connections there. Now it's all work from
Hmm.
home. Now those things are those things were dead ended at the start of COVID, and now because there's no way to reinvigorate them like with any in person contact. Uh, and those people themselves had been relegated to sort of work from home positions. And then since everybody is work from home, it's hard to tell what anybody's doing. They themselves are found themselves laid off within the past year. And so the people that used to hire me at places that could hire me aren't even there anymore. They've been replaced by interns who have no idea how one storyboard artist is better than another and whether or not Max is worth it. And maybe they've got their own friends that they're trying to give a shot to, and all that is fine. I'm not going to begrudge any sort of like realities as far as that goes. It's a shame. I hope it comes back for me, but It was there when I needed it, but it's not there now. What is true is that at some places, some of my contacts are still solid. And where those are the case, like I've been able to get enough work to sustain, but it's not union work. And the reason it's not union work is because there are no actors involved. Nobody's SAG, nobody's ADG, no, there's no lighting, there's no whatever, there's no whatever. The entire thing is done inside of a computer. There's just a pipeline of computers that is mostly concepted in Los Angeles and then outsourced to wherever they need it to get produced. And I'm not talking about on a stage with actors or whatever non-union labor wherever. The union stuff doesn't even factor into it. It's just the entire production is done via VFX. And so, and I'm not even talking about like done in another country. This is done in New York. So the reality is, and actually a lot of my clients that I have right now are in that sector, which is why I can still make a living, but it's not a union living. It's its own sort of thing. And I think I'm going to be okay because my wife, like I said, is a doctor and she can do her work full time and get the benefits she needs, but there's a sacrifice to be had where she is essentially away from our family for longer periods of time than we would prefer. It's a sacrifice. It may be necessary. Hopefully my daughter stays healthy and then we can maybe eventually evaluate things down the road. But unless my union work comes back, I don't see any other option. So that's where I'm at. Is next week I'm actually booked after not working all like 5 days in a row. I actually do have work next week, and I'm extremely excited about it. But it's not union, and it never will be. Even if all the things that you talk about come true, it's not going to affect this production or productions like it. There's a lot of ways to make commercials, and there's a lot of ways to make content. And I don't know the way that things are stacked. It's just you have to look at the incentives. There's so many incentives to figure out things that don't involve having to sign with like big contracts where strikes are involved. Can you blame anybody for trying to look and do things in a different way? It just, to me, it's not efficient to do business this way. Um, and
Yeah, sure. There's some jobs that are never going to be union, like you said,
mhm.
but then there are some jobs that should be union that that
Right.
aren't paying union because they
Yeah.
can just go someplace else and
Yeah.
pay wrongfully. It's a big issue.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say that
So
like this client or the clients that I'm talking about pay great wages or whatever, but they don't. It's it's not like it's like a they don't purport themselves to be like, hey, you're gonna, um, I don't know, where they where they're clear about what's freelance, what isn't. Sometimes they bring artists on staff. There's a chance I could leave the union and become staff at some of these studios themselves, and it's not union, but they'll still pay me. Like, well, I mean, what do you think about that? Like, if I left the union but got like a full time storyboard artist position at a non union studio that didn't do, there was no live action stuff. There's no crew. There's no sets. It's just all VFX and or non union animation workers. They're not bound by the tag agreements, the animation union stuff. Um, what do you think about that? Like I can get what I need by making a different choice. Like right now, when my daughter got sick, it made sense for me to stay in the union because I didn't know whether or not at any given day if I'd be able to work for 6 months or if we were gonna go to hospice and it just wasn't worth it. Now that things timeline seems longer, it feels like, hey, maybe I should actually seek out a staff position at some of these places. Because I could get benefits that way. They'll pay health insurance and retirement, and I don't have to work in commercials, and I don't have to think about it as a gig. It's more of like a real job. Is that a better solution? Like, what if the studios themselves operated more like they did, you know, because it used to be that like Disney would just roll their artists onto the next production. Whenever one would shut down, they would just roll everybody off onto the next one. Now they lay everybody off until there's actually work, and that's a shitty way to do things for the artist because then they got to scramble. But it didn't you always used to be that way. It used to be like you would just be always doing something at a big studio. And granted, they were union even at that time, but I don't know. It's just interesting. The I don't know.
Well, when things seem complicated, I go back to what I always say, which is the the interests of the artist are the most important,
Hmm.
and whatever can align with that is great, and whatever doesn't is not so great.
Hmm.
And it's not, and it's on those other entities to then make sure that they're accommodating artists and providing wall for them.
Hmm.
So because so for example, right now with the contract negotiations and with the agreement and IATSE saying, maybe some of them did hear about what the artists were complaining about, but ultimately, according to the votes, people said, screw it, we'll just go ahead and ratify this and let's all get
Hmm.
back to work. And even if that means that artists going into the future are screwed. So if then those artists then go work at some of these studios like you just mentioned and work with this technology that the contracts are now okaying that all these members voted on, then can I don't know if they can be faulted. I don't know if the artist can be faulted for that because all these people said we're okay with you losing your job, and
Right.
oh, now you found a job someplace else that's going to replace other jobs instead. Well, I don't know. It just seems like I don't know what the expression is here, but give and take, um, double-edged sword.
Hmm.
I personally wouldn't fault anyone. I my big thing with Gen AI is that it's the way it sources the material is unethical, and that
Hmm.
even though it seems outwardly great, the fact is it's made on basically baby blood.
Yeah, I
It's
agree. I agree.
yeah,
I
yeah. So
agree.
even though because the results can be really cool,
Uh huh.
but it's like, oh well, let's fucking bring back slavery.
I agree.
Profits for
Yeah.
everyone, cheaper prices. But oh, too
Yeah.
bad
It's like
slavery.
at
Well,
at what cost, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the technology is great, but only because it's unethical. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, how do you make all this money from nothing? You fucking steal it, and that's
Yeah.
what it is. So that's why I don't. That's why I personally don't support Gen AI. Because I
Hmm.
used to mess around with it to see what it could do, and I would
Hmm.
post demos online to show people what it could do because they didn't believe me.
Hmm.
And I was like, hey guys, actually, yeah, it's actually coming along. It's pretty capable.
Hmm.
But then I stopped because I realized ultimately, it doesn't matter what it can do, how it's doing it is unethical, and
Right.
in order for artists to stay employed into the future, that it shouldn't be allowed to perpetuate. So, I think I answered your question. There might have been another part I was going to touch on. Oh, but like,
Don't
so
worry
then these
about it.
studios that an artist
Hmm.
could go work at and be on
Hmm.
staff and make a decent living,
Hmm.
I personally wouldn't fault him. That's
Hmm.
just me personally.
That's good because next week I'm going to join staff at this other studio and abandon the. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, but I can say in all honesty that I was offered um, a staff position at this place, and I didn't want to do it at the time because I'm a fucking pirate. I love doing the whatever like I love honestly it's because I preferred the gig life, and I was getting my union hour, I was getting by doing what I was doing, and I didn't want to do what felt like settling for something that felt a little sellout, and that was it. That was the reason I didn't do it. They would have the company's still in business despite the all the other stuff going on in the industry. Who's to say whether or not it would have been good or bad? But it's possible I might change my mind down the road. I don't think I made a bad decision at the time, but that's a path I could have taken, and I could have left the union and might not have ever really met you as a result, because I would have probably been just fine. But then I'd be like, it still doesn't separate the thing. Like I'd still be a wage slave. I still couldn't not like a slave or whatever, but it's like uh, again, it's like I couldn't afford to quit ever, even if I didn't like my job, because my health insurance was tied to the thing, and all the things down the road, all the things we've already discussed.
yeah,
Uh,
I was just gonna
it's
say, like,
those
once you start
overarching
speculating,
problems. Yeah, yeah.
once you start speculating about like how maybe it could have been better, well, maybe the
Mhm.
fucking whole thing folded a year later and you're
Yeah.
unemployed and out of the
It
union.
totally could have. It totally
You
could
know,
have, and it still could. Like I could sign a 10-year contract with them that ends up being worth nothing because they fold, or they sell
yeah.
themselves to China or something like that. Nothing wrong with China, of course, but the but anything could happen, right? And it's like I don't trust like a contract to be worth anything, right? That's why I like the smaller gigs. But yeah, it's tricky, and it's like I'm not saying you're wrong when you talk about like if we can make the union bigger and expand the union's influence and blah blah blah. But Zach, look what just happened. The union sold us out to the producers for the sake of a pay bump with no strike, and so it's again it's hard for me to be like, okay, well, the if the union's the solution and the union just sold us out, then I don't know what the I don't know where to turn to.
I
Oh,
I
yeah,
hear
yeah. I think
I
you
know
agree with me on those points. But I agree that like here's what I want. Yeah, I think here's where we like I think we can both definitely agree is like
no.
what couldn't hurt. What couldn't hurt is if storyboard artists decided to stop being so behind the scenes and actually put ourselves more where people can see what we do and make ourselves more relevant and advocate for ourselves more collectively and union or not, like because I've been on both sides and I see
Yeah.
like all those factors and health insurance or not, benefits or not, like storyboard artists as a craft, like we need to do more to make ourselves like in the world's vision so that people don't just consider ourselves like expendable or disposable, like since everything we do was always potentially work from home and now is expected to be work from home, we're just sort of like this another invisible email address on like a list of things, like people who never go to a set, like other crafts don't have any interaction with us, we're the art directors clearly don't care about us, and so and the union leadership itself obviously didn't care for ourselves. So whether or not we're in the union or not, like we have to do more together to help each other, to make ourselves more relevant, to advocate for ourselves. And I'm not sure what the solution is with any of this stuff, but like, you know, part of this stream, part of what I want your voice on here is be like, we got to let people know that we're here, that we do a job that's important. Almost nothing can happen without what we do. And that doesn't matter if it's animation or live action or even video games use storyboards. Everything uses storyboards. So, it's time to rise up and be advocate for ourselves and do more to be uninvisibilize ourselves in the public. So
I agree. I agree.
yeah,
And
yeah.
for a while, us being behind the scenes for a long while, us being behind the scenes was fine as long as we were being paid and treated properly,
I
but
agreed. Like
that's
that
not
was
the
part
case
of it.
anymore.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understood that for the longest time that I was like, well, no one knows that I'm responsible for how that scene turned out and why it was so cool. But, I got paid well and I fed my kids today and all that stuff. Then, late last year, it became clear that it's like even being complicit in my own silence and shrinking myself to the size of invisibility, like me doing it myself, like, oh, I'll just bow out. I don't need to take credit for anything. Well, now we see where it got us. And it's just like, oh, well, now people are being like, well, let's storyboard artists, who needs them? We got AI now and stuff like that. Now that stuff won't replace us. Like again, it's like the amount of work that's out there, it's not because AI took it over. AI doesn't do what we do, but AI can possibly convince foolish people who are in the position of hiring storyboard artists that we might be expendable. In the short term, what this can do is shrink our craft by starving some of us out and ultimately making it a hostile environment to try and make a living. If there are potential people trying to make a living as storyboard artists and they would have had a bright career ahead of them if not for these strange interactions that are temporary, hopefully. Then it's the world's loss because we'll never know what could have been. I'm I want to push back against that. So this is, again, part of what I'm doing is not exactly strictly storyboarding, but where we can, even if in a small part, get used to the practice of like advocating ourselves and talking about these ideas, and just doing better to shed light on these concerns, I think is a good move. So,
Yep,
yep.
I agree.
All right, you agree. All right, Zach. Well, I'm going to let you have the final word. Have the final word. I'm going to keep drawing, but I want to just focus on coloring now. You can shoot the shit with me if you want to, but have the
Okay.
final word about your thing. What should people know about this new union that's going to happen? Or is in the
What
or is
what
you're
should
talking about the
people
expansion
know?
of the, I don't know. It's
Well,
like, so let's say
well,
there's
this
a
is something
young
that
potential storyboard artist in the audience that they're not in LA. They're not even in the United States. What should they know? What's a thing that is coming? What do you predict? What's your
well,
prediction?
well, can I answer the question now? Uh, well, you said, well, what's the thing that people should know? Well, this is if such a thing is going to happen, what's going to need to happen before that is because right now, technically, no matter where you live, there's technically a union that has jurisdiction over union work done in your area.
Mm-hmm.
And people, I mean, I don't know if you knew this, Max. I don't know if you knew. A lot
What?
of people I talked to who lived in various parts of the country
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that.
Okay.
But so what has to happen is those unions have to essentially collectively consent to just relinquish this occupation to a union that wants national jurisdiction.
Interesting.
So yeah, so it's going to be outreach to the members who are already signed up with those little local unions, and it's going to be outreach to the non-union members who live in that area who didn't even know it was a thing,
Mm.
and then having them, call their little local union and say, hey, yeah, we want to be part of this other national union, or call the other artists who are actually registered with those little locals and tell them, um,
Mm-hmm.
we I think we should be part of this national union.
Okay.
So that's one thing I would like that the word's going to have to eventually get out about that. More people are going to have to know about that in order for it to happen. And
Okay.
then, but like you said, and this will be the last thing I say.
Mm-hmm.
You said, what good is it to have a national union under ADG when you look at how ADG threw us under the bus?
Right.
And or you to paraphrase what you said, that's
That's exact.
basically
I'll endorse
yeah,
that statement.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
my
yeah,
sentiment on the matter.
yeah. Well, that was noticed by, I think everyone noticed that, and I don't think it's going to be forgotten. And ADG really wants national jurisdiction, but those of us in IMA and those artists out there who would eventually fall under this jurisdiction if it was through ADG,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be under the current conditions that we've been operating under because I've said it. I've said it in another forum. I was like, I'm not going to help turn over a whole nation of artists to I forget what word I used, but yeah, to the same forces that treated us this way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
why would I help that? Why would I help that cause? Why would I be bringing other people into an abusive family?
Right.
So yeah, so
So wait, are you against the expansion, or you?
I
Um,
am for a national union that includes all artists and all covered storyboarding work across the whole country. I'm
mm-hmm.
for that.
Mm-hmm.
People think that the way that that's likely going to happen is through the ADG. The ADG's jurisdiction is going to expand, which, by the way, their jurisdiction is already national, but it's only for the art directors. So they already have national jurisdiction, but for art directors, and now we want to add on the illustrators and matte artists. So it's not
Right.
like it's like some huge brand new thing. It's already a
Right.
thing. Um, but the thing is, and the caveat is,
Mm-hmm.
um, if it's going to be with the ADG, then it can't be the ADG as it exists right now because as it exists right now has fucked us.
Yeah. No, I
So it's
agree.
going to have to be another new form of ADG if it's going to
Mm-hmm.
get the national jurisdiction. If it wants to have the artist as part of it, then it has to be different than what it is right now and what it has been. That's my personal
Right.
opinion, and I think and a lot of people I talked to had that opinion also because a lot of people really did not like what happened this with these negotiations and the
Yeah.
way things have been conducted for a while now. Not to
Mm-hmm.
mention the fact that arguably the merger in the first place was against the will of the members. So,
Right. Right. Yeah.
yeah. And if
Uh,
people want to say, "Oh, that sounds like it's that's like anti-union talk. Well, no, it's actually extremely pro-union talk to the point where it's pointing out the behavior in the past that's been anti-union,
Hmm.
perpetual, done by others in the
Yeah.
past.
Zach,
So, because like a really, uh,
go ahead. No, continue because but I'm about to
yeah.
actually get the last word.
Oh, okay. Of course.
Of
Why
course, of
why would I
course,
see
of
any other way?
course. Yeah, no, I gotcha. I gotcha. Um, well,
No, I think
let
that
me,
was it.
but let me say really quickly because unfortunately this might provoke more discussion. Only if you've got time. But the
I don't
Zach,
have kids because I couldn't afford kids, Max. You said that earlier.
but I said you didn't deserve kids, is what I said. No.
Oh, yeah, I don't deserve them either.
Yeah. What is this would be controversial for me to say, but Zach, I might say
Half
that
Mexican,
some
mostly
of
Mexican.
oh Zach, I don't see color because I'm flashing these strobe lights in front of my eyes the entire time. There's been some revelations because of what happened at the vote and stuff like that. This made me sort of, and again, you know how cynical I am, but some of the behavior of the union itself seems anti-union, and that is the most perplexing part of the equation. Is the because if there's talk about like union in the union, I know that this much that in the union laws and all the stuff that makes up the union, whatever the contracts, you can't have a union in competition with the union. You can't make another union for storyboard artists other than the union for storyboard artists that already exists. Not in the way that the not in the language that's written. And this is just speculative on my part, but like the jurisdiction for where the storyboard artists can be and like where those limits are and stuff like that, that may end up being part of what can be negotiated with, again, with the AMPTP, the you know the producers on the thing, that whether or not I'm not even sure if that's something that the union itself has the power to do. So like the power to get what we want from the union still doesn't belong to the union. The power to create a union that is more powerful than the union is forbidden than is forbidden by the union. And when we talk about things that we expect from the union works against it to create to go in the other direction, or to basically shrink our relevance to the equation. It's just very frustrating for me to reflect on some of that, whether or not it's all true or just sort of been my take on the thing is can be discussed, but all right, now you get the final word. What do you think about what I just said?
I think you're not alone in that sentiment. I think a
Okay.
lot of people feel that way, including me.
Okay.
And yeah, at 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 the worst times, it seems like outsourced HR to me at the worst times,
I do.
at
Yeah.
and then sometimes it seems like
Yeah.
a company or corporation in itself,
Let me tell.
especially once it starts dictating to the employees how to do their jobs, and that's
Yeah.
it. Just seems like
It
a
is like
corporation, and
all
then
of our grievances have to go through these union channels, and I like, of course the rhetoric is there. Oh, the union will solve the problem, but then does it? I can think of
yeah.
even in my mother's case, because she was in the animation union and stuff like that, and she's filed grievances, and they didn't go her way. There let me There's all sorts of different things that are strange about the animation union in and of itself, but I was gonna say this is an inflammatory statement, but I believe. Well, I shouldn't say belief. I often talk about how I don't have beliefs, but it seems to me that for all intents and purposes, the union is like the welfare arm of the AMPTP. It's just essentially there to like amount to um, the sort of like the benefit lottery. Like there's like where like if you can get it, great for you or whatever. But there's no guarantees, and for some people it works out, and for some people it doesn't. Now that isn't a great way to perceive it, because of course some people do great under the union system, but it does appear to me that there are, it, objectively, like artist stuff aside, like I look at it and like I just see a delineation of haves versus have nots, and there are so many ways to revamp the system in a way that can be a little bit more flexible for the artist. Like, why can't we, if we are, let's say I'm like 5 or 10 hours away from, making the amount of benefits I need, in whatever eligibility period, because it's like you have to make like 600 to start and then 400 to sustain, and it's like, I've had discussions with other people where they're like, I was so close and I just didn't make it. It was like down to 5 hours or whatever. But it's like, there should be ways where we can advocate for ourselves and be like, fuck, I'll pay like whatever the difference would have been plus a fee to get me into that sector. But of course you can't. It comes down to the work and the availability and the economics of the thing, where it's like, if everything's open to everybody, then everybody else gets, I don't know. It's like, there's only so much pie. There's only so many ways to slice a small pie where everybody still gets like a piece that is worth even having. Um, I don't know. I don't know
Mm.
what the a lot of the, I don't know. There,
Well,
I'm of two minds
Max,
about the
I
thing.
just
Yeah,
wanted I want to interrupt you real fast
yeah,
about the pie analogy because
yeah.
I thought the same thing, and I know this is a. I'm not going to say it's a trap because I'm not going to say it's necessarily wrong, but
Sure.
if you look at it like a pie and you have people arguing over two slices of that pie, saying, "Look,
Hmm.
look, we just can't have more people around because look, there's only two slices of pie."
Right.
What's happening right now is the majority of the pie is being taken and sold off under the table to other people.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
I
my
agree with you
my
there.
opinion.
Yeah.
That's what I suspect because
Yeah.
there's way too much fucking work out there for way too many studios and movies and TV shows and commercials and all that with all this money for there not to be more jobs. So
Yeah.
it's still happening. These slices of pie are just being sold off under the table, and
Yeah.
that's my opinion. That's what I think is happening.
Yeah.
Or they're just
No.
not storyboarding. But
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, no. Well, they should be, because that storyboarding helps solve problems. If anything, it's like, and again, I didn't know this, but I guess there's no staffing minimums for like storyboard artists or anything. You can have a whole production with no storyboard artists at all, and there's no problem with that. And
yes.
I guess that's the way some people would like to do business. Or in fact, you can have as many storyboarders as you like, and they don't have to be union if you're doing outsourcing and all the things. And Zach,
Oh, I
I
just realized something.
what's that?
I just realized something. The fact that there's no minimum also means that you could claim you never hired someone and then pay that fucking PA to do it.
Right, right, like to
Yeah.
do a storyboard. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can hire hire someone completely off the books and just
Hmm.
claim you never had one. Whereas with other positions that have a staffing minimum, you would have to come up with some name. To
Right,
you couldn't just get away with just not hiring nobody, but with us you can and or claim you have it and then hire somebody else or you know.
right.
Anyway,
Well,
sorry, you were gonna say something. Also,
well,
I'm
even if
waiting for
there.
this last word.
Oh, sure. I don't know about last words. We can just keep talking if you're not out of gas yet, because I'll just keep doing this. But
Oh, okay.
um, I mean, we can talk about my new cool setup. We can talk about coloring that I'm doing. We can talk about my hair. We can talk about my sunburn. We can talk about anything. Um, the uh, I've heard about like PAs doing, like, a lot of people in animation who get into storyboarding like get an opportunity as a PA to like board something really quick. I guess is something that happens, and it's like, I don't know if there's controversy there about the process, but it's weird because it's like, you have to be of two minds about the thing. It's like, if you're in the union and you're not if you're in the union and you're not getting the work you need to make the benefits, then it's like, the people left and right of you can seem like the enemy, because they're taking a piece of your pie. But if you're getting the benefits and their work is still there, then it feels like you're just like, well, of course I want to be generous and make sure everybody's got what they need, because after all, everything's plentiful. Why be why be stingy about it? Um, and I don't know, like even if we did have like minimums, there's nothing's like a minimum of what, one, and then you could still hire like three PAs to do storyboard work after that, right?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I personally I sat through the meeting where they explained like the benefits and like retirement and how you have to have like 20 qualifying years in order to get full retirement. And I'm sitting there
Mm-hmm.
thinking, well, I'm just getting in now and I'm 40.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna have to qualify 20 years between now and 65.
Right.
Like, what are the odds of that happening? And then I was thinking about my friends who are also in the union and people who are around the same age as me, and like this other individual I'm thinking of, he has an agent and he's been working for a while and he's still been struggling for 5 years to qualify to get on a roster or to get benefits.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, what are the odds that I'm gonna do that without an agent?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're the it's not impossible, but even if I did pull it off, it would make me such a rarity
Right.
that, like, it's a sign that the system shouldn't be fucking built that way. If you have to be like a fucking unicorn in order to make it happen, that's
Absolutely.
no
Yeah.
that yeah that like yeah like Max, you're a very special child. You're
I
you're
know. I know.
you're
I'm
yeah,
the
yeah, you're
tell me about
touched, as some
more.
people
Yeah.
say, maybe by the tism, but yeah, you're touched. So
Autism.
you're a unique. That's what me and my girlfriend say,
No, I'm definitely
and
touched by the
we're both
tism.
probably neurodivergent, so no hate on
Yeah.
the
No,
neurospicy people
we're
out there.
all
But I'm with you.
no, we're all
But
about indies. Indies nuts. I
yeah,
definitely like I definitely reflect to the point where it's like when I did qualify for like for benefits and stuff like that, I was like there had to be a mistake. Like it like this was not because you can imagine being in the situation I was with like my kid in the
yeah,
hospital and my wife with her and stuff like that. I was like it just felt like it was
yeah,
too good to be true. And I just told myself I was like I'm going to be okay with this until it goes away. I expect it to go away. I don't expect this to work forever, but if it can last as long as I need it to, I will be forever grateful. And it did for a few years, and I'm in a better position accordingly than I believe I deserve. But that is not an endorsement of the system. That it's the exception, you know. It's like if it can't be something where I could recommend that, like, oh, you just take the path that I did and do this. Ultimately, in my opinion, it just. But I've had this. I've used this phrase before, but it was like it was special compensation. There's ways of because companies can have there's ways for companies to have like a production company can have like a sister entity that is signatory when the company itself is non-signatory. And
right,
ultimately it can be a thing where for like a non-union company doing a non-union production, if an artist is worth it and can make their case and can flirt with the producers and do everything else, and just or else you see him crying in the office every day, like talking about his daughter's dying and stuff like that. It's like it shouldn't necessarily surprise everybody that, like, in those circumstances enough heartstrings were pulled in order to push for saying, hey, let's help Max out. And all we have to do is this, and we have the means, and we're going to be like heroes. And, we can all sleep well tonight knowing that we're helping out someone who really deserves it, who deserves it more than Max. And, that's me just talking myself up. But, like, assuming any of that was true, that would have been the story. Um, now, uh, what, 5, 6 years later, those same people who made the case for me at that company, they're gone. Like they're fired, they're left, they retired, they all the different things. They're at different companies doing different things, or they're it's like I haven't seen these people in so long that if they're gone, or if they're still there and they don't advocate for me, I don't blame them. But I've actually done my research and they're not at the companies anymore. So I don't have those voices saying it's like, hey, we need to make sure we get Max hired because he's going to lose his benefits and if we don't do that kind of a thing. So where I, had the golden goose, and I did everything right and I never lost it, but it's gone now, and I can't get that back. Not from the outside, and certainly not in a work from home basis. And I don't know where my prospects lie in commercials. Union hours are not necessarily an easy way to do it. And I'm not in the film and television union. I'm just in the commercial union. So the
Right.
contracts, that's a whole different scenario in and of itself. So I don't know what the where to go from here. I don't know if I can
Well,
do it with my agent. I don't know if I have to do something different. I don't know if I have to go like like down the street is like NBC Universal. Like, can I just go knock on the door and see if they need storyboards? It's I've thought about doing that sort of thing. I probably should, since Universal is probably producing Zelda. So TBD on that. But yeah, I'm a little curious what comes next with a lot of that stuff. It before COVID, it seemed like everything would just stretch on, and I would just keep rolling down. But yeah, no, I'm a little bit unsure where it looks like where it once looked like I had everything figured out. I didn't have it figured out then, and I certainly don't have it figured out now. So like you and I have a lot more in common with a lot of the current union situation with where are we going to get, where's the work going to come in, can we prevent all the outsourcing? Like, I'm all for that stuff. I want it to happen.
I hear you. I hear you. And yeah,
Mm,
yeah. Things are. I'm just thinking about the industry in general, and when I was a script supervisor also, and you just kind of things are seem to be working out for you, and you're going along for a few months, and then something happens, and it just like knocks around your ass, and you just kind of like look at the whole thing again, and like, well, what did I think I was doing in the first place?
hmm
And then but I always look at like the older workers, the people who've been around for a lot longer, and I listen to
hmm
the stories about the way things used to be,
hmm
and the industry has changed so much since those stories that I've heard.
hmm
It's yeah, it's really you can't really go forward based on what you were told
Right.
years ago or what someone told someone years and years ago. Like
hmm
it's changing constantly, and the only person you can rely on really is yourself. And then,
hmm
but when you're pitted against huge entities like studios and corporations, and that's when you do need to try and come together and form a union, and then make sure that that union is not full of corrupt assholes.
Right, right.
Uh,
I
you
agree
know,
with that. Like the union as it should be something that helps us. It just feels like
yeah.
there's a big difference between the union as it is and the union as it should be.
Right. Or yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it doesn't just become a pay to play. Like
Right,
I
exactly. That's how it was seeming to me, like very much just another gatekeeping entity. The kind of
yeah.
like the agencies themselves.
Some
You
people are
you
profiting off of that.
now
Yeah. Some
the
people are
the pay to
profiting.
play stuff. Yeah, tell me about these controversies. You haven't named names, and I won't probe you, although
Well,
I'm
one
super
artist told me the
curious.
story about when he wanted to get into the union.
Hmm
He happened to have the contact of an agent, and the agent said, "All right, well, you know, I'll get you in. I'll get you the work, and you'll work non-union, or you'll work on a union project, and then you'll get your days." And he's like, "Well, I'm not in the union, so how can I do that?" And
hmm
the agent just took care of it and just snapped his fingers, and he had a non-union worker working a union job, which wasn't supposed to happen. Or maybe the agent, did push and file and got a producer request. They just didn't explain it to the artist. Like, yeah, I got you a producer request. They
Mm.
didn't explain it to the artist. Like, bottom line at the end of the day was an agent got a storyboard artist the union days they needed to join the union in exchange, obviously, for their agency fee.
Right.
And who knows if they had to pay more on top of that? I didn't ask that,
Yeah,
but
that sounds concerning. Yeah.
yeah,
That it
yeah.
doesn't
So
sound
there's
worlds apart from what happened to me though. And this is
yeah,
again, this is stuff is not in it's not well represented. It's certainly not in any of the union language or anything like that. But the when I was part of what happened to me when my I think I've told you this story before, but when my daughter got sick, um, and people whom I knew were like in the union, like essentially everybody who knew what was happening to me, who was older and was a storyboard artist, was like, you got to get in the union, you got to do it so you can get the health insurance, etc. And hey, come on in. Hey, bro. My brother Boxer's here. Here, come around the corner. Dip your head into the
Your
stream.
brother's here?
Dip your
What's up,
head into the
everybody?
stream. Hey, my bro, talking to the
Whoa,
mic.
hey. Whoa,
How's
it's
it
two
going?
Maxes on the
Yeah,
screen. What the
I
heck?
know. This is Boxer, my younger brother. Yeah, he streams too. So this is
Boxer.
now you can't hear what
No.
I'm hearing because I'm having a Discord
Oh,
discussion.
Oh,
He
very
can't.
cool.
Yeah, he can't hear because it's
tell
all
him I
in
said
the.
hi.
He's Zach says
Tell
hi.
him he's a
So
more
Hi,
attractive
Zach.
brother.
All right,
all
I'll
right,
leave you to it.
you're
I'll go on chat and I'll bug you there.
yeah. Go in the chat or whatever. Yeah, riz me up in the chat. So he says you're the more attractive brother, by the way. So you can't believe anything he says. Um, so but what so I mean this is backtracking considerably, but so my daughter was born in 2017. She got sick in 2018. But in 2013, I was doing really well at my agency. Like so I was my agent like pulled me aside and she was like, "Okay, Max, let's go to lunch. Let's talk. Let's chat, baby." So she took me out to lunch and she says, "Okay, so Max, so I just want to let you know that you're the 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 highest earning best artist at our agency, and the purpose of this lunch is just to make sure you're happy, and if you're not happy, what can we do, and if there's anything we can do, let us know. What are your plans for the future? What do you think?" And unambitious lazy me, I was just sort of like, cool, I think I'm super glad to hear that. It's not too surprising. I knew I had been doing well, but also I was like, I really appreciate this lunch. I don't have any grievances, and all that seems interesting. So thanks for letting me know. We had a nice lunch. I went home. A couple months later, she says, "Hey Max, we got this interesting email from the union, and they're they're sort of making these. They're reaching out to all the major agencies to see if their best artists want to join the Art Directors Guild, to be like a storyboard artist in the union." And so it's like you're obviously the first one on the list. What do you think? And I actually told her, sounds interesting, but no thanks. And the reason I did that was because I actually had like a individual health insurance plan, so I felt like I was okay. I was certainly healthy at the time, healthy, and I was healthy and young enough at the time to not be worried about like, oh, it could get sick one day or whatever, and retirement, what the hell is that? So I wasn't really thinking about stuff like that. Part of that is just being a stupid, arrogant kid. But I was in a position where I was like, well, uh, I looked at like the union discourse like online, and granted, I didn't call the union and say like, hey, this is my position. What do you think? Is this a good or bad thing? What I did was I went online and I read like the contract, like how do you join the union? What benefits are in the union? What does it mean to be in the union? And what I saw was a bunch of like thick legalese about like, if you're in the union, you can't work on non-union projects. If you can't do anything in the union without the say so of the union, blah 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 blah. It just looked like a big bunch of hassle, and then of course it was going to be entrance fees on top of that. It just looked like a bunch of hassle. Like I'm already at the time I was booked almost every day practically, and I wasn't making $1,000 a day or anything like that, but I was making good money, and I wasn't hard up for work, and I wasn't in the mood to shake up my life for the sake of some new unknown. Um, Here's my bro in the chat. So everybody say hi, Boxer. But
Hi,
the
Boxer.
yeah. So anyway, I was not as blown over by the offer, and my agent herself was surprised by that. She's like, "Yeah, but don't you how don't you feel about like advancing, or like don't you really want to be an art director one day?" And I told her, I was like, all I want to do is like work with people who want good storyboard artists and do storyboarding. I like my job. I like drawing every day. I all I want to do is draw my ass off,
Yeah.
and yeah, if I can make a living doing that, I'll count myself lucky. I already feel lucky. So like things that felt like there would be like, it like I had done enough math to be like, unless I was working more, I very likely wouldn't earn more in a particularly obvious way. It's possible that, like, yes, I'd get benefit like retirement benefits and stuff down the road, but I already had like a E-Trade account. I was already setting up and investing my own money and doing all sorts of things. I was like, I don't need like all this oversight. A lot of that, and to this day, I feel like a lot of that pension stuff or whatever, like that stuff's good, but it's also a little old fashioned. Like people can manage their own retirements. It's not necessary for like, it's like, oh, well, how can one person set up a retirement for themselves? I'm here to tell you, if you're an American artist listening to this, that an individual person can set up their own retirement. It's absolutely possible, and it can absolutely do well. So it's not something that unions have any crazy control over. Not to say that they can't do a good job of it, but even to this day, like we get the union statements and stuff like that, and they're like, "Hooray, we're like 60% solvent," or something like that. Every negotiation they require the producers to bail them out of whatever crazy situation they're in, and I just don't know what the crazy case for having union managed retirements is. It just doesn't seem like it's all that it's cracked up to be in today's day and age. So anyway, at the time, I turned it down. And fast forward to many years later, my kid is born. A year later, my kid gets insanely sick with cancer. And at that point, I was singing a different tune. And I think like my first call, like I found out she had cancer, and like my first call was to my agent. And I was like, you got to know what's going on. And so that was, we had a hard felt conversation there. And then very quickly, I called them back to say that, like, hey, I don't know what it's going to take or what I got to do, but I will do anything. But you got to help me get in the union. And I can't do it from the hospital. You got to figure out a way to do it now. And I don't know if you remember that, like 7 years ago or whatever, we had that conversation. And if you can, see if you can call the union and make a case for me and see if they'll take me 7 years later. And if they can, I will make this happen somehow. And they the next morning they called bright and early, and the union was interested. And as far as I know, they didn't mention the cancer or anything like that. It wasn't like a big pity party. They wanted me because my agent said, this guy's the best. This guy's better than anybody else, and he's gonna be good for the union if you'll take him. And the Laura, the person at the union, was like, send him over. I'll talk to him right now. And I had to sign over a big old check for the initiation fee, and then the rest was paid over time. But yeah, that's my entry in. And then it was a matter of my agent talking to clients, as many as she could, my existing clients, and being like, is there any way you can give max union hours? And the overwhelming majority was like, there's no way. Although we love Max, so can we keep hiring, kind of thing. But one client was able to do it, and I was lucky for that. That I recognized then, and I recognize it now, was an outlying, like, unicorn type situation. That's not everybody's situation. And if I wasn't in the situation where I was, the advice, my path doesn't translate to anybody else down the road. It can't, and it won't. So it makes me upset to see other people in need, who are like, okay, well, I'll do this and it'll be better for me overall. um I'm not sure it's always the case. It can be, I suppose, but ultimately it's like, union or not, like, it's gonna be a hard fought scrabble to make your way in this industry, no matter what. So, all right, that's my spiel. That's my spiel about it. Um, and I that's the reason why I can be a little cynical about it, because easy come, easy go, and I didn't have control
Right.
over it the way that anybody might have wished. All I had control over was being worth hiring, and being in demand. That was what was happening there. And now there's no demand for anything. I'm lucky to be working next week. It's tricky, and I'm certainly not getting union hours next week.
Mm.
Have you had much like union work with the storyboarding stuff,
Well,
Zach, since you joined? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
mm,
Because in the last 11
no,
months, I've had like 4 days. That's it. Whereas you
no, I only
normally
get
I would
my
have tons, tons and tons.
right. No, I only get my union work through one client, but
Hmm.
they're connected to a potentially larger source of employment, which I'm actually about to contact, and because right now I need to do outreach and get new clients because I just lost like a really big repeat client, so I need to replace fill
Yeah.
that in somewhere. So
Hmm.
um yeah, so no, so no, I haven't gotten a lot of days. In fact, I filed for that reduced fees,
Yeah. I'm
um
gonna be on
or
that track
reduced dues.
myself. Yeah. Because I
Mhm.
like where I was normally like it'll bounce back, it'll bounce back, it'll bounce back. At this point, I'm like, fuck, those reduced fees would help pay another bill. and
Yeah.
and especially with what happened with the vote, I'm not feeling as generous to the union at the moment.
Yeah, no, they're in the doghouse.
Yeah, they're in the
I did
doghouse.
see I did see in the on the like the map where it shows like all the productions that have been reported. That have
Hmm.
been, I did notice that the number of LA productions have gone up dramatically.
Oh, that's good.
Like before I would scroll down and I would only see two or three, but now there's definitely a lot there. So there's work
Okay.
returning. But I did want to ask you, so when your agent called around and like, can we get maximum union days? And they're like, oh
Hmm.
no, that's not really, can't really
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Like that made me think about the fact that so union commercials are happening. So that each one of those union commercials, if they have a storyboard artist, the storyboard artist is also supposed to be union because it's a signatory commercial,
Hmm.
right?
I'd imagine. Yeah. but
Yeah.
the but
So should be happening.
but there's
So
different ways.
this attitude of like making it or unmaking it union, like that
Yeah.
to me that seems strange because if it's a union commercial and the union in the crew is union, then it's a union commercial and it should be a union storyboard artist.
So this is where things can be a little tricky. And I don't have the specifics on how this finagling goes. But there's storyboarding that you do for pre-production, and then there's storyboarding you do for post-production. And I think that this is the secret to how, like, because some some vendors, like all vendors that do like special effects for like films or whatever, they need storyboards, right? But not all of them need them in terms of the pre-production. Sometimes you need the storyboard artist for the post-production. And the pre-production storyboards feel like they need to be part of like the crew, like the IATSE type crew. But like post-production storyboards that end up being like, if all the post-production is done in Vancouver, for instance, and Vancouver isn't done, I believe that there you can have this sort of entity that, like, or you can have post-production that is
Are you
union
talking about
at,
commercials still or movies?
well, both entities or any kind of entity. Like, I'm not sure if it really has to, like like what is, like, what's the end, like, what is a commercial? What is a film? Does any of this stuff really matter? I don't think the union actually cares about any of this stuff. Like, I think they do, but I don't think they
Well, they're under
actually.
two different contracts for one thing.
Right, but I don't think that people, like,
The reason I
it.
ask is because if you're talking about storyboards for use in post, it sounds like you're talking about like VFX, like previs stuff, and then it sounds like it's tied to subcontracting and like all these non-union workers
Well,
are
that's what I'm
hired.
talking about. I think there is subcontracting, but there's ways of doing the subcontracting that can help a union artist or hurt a union artist. Um, there's just real. I've been on at least a couple of projects that weren't union until like they needed to be union, and then somehow they found a way to make it union. And it wasn't like the whole production was union. It was just they're like, oh well, we can get max those hours that way, and they just essentially it's just a route that they do via and
Oh,
like and like I wish I really had knowledge about this stuff because I don't. But like I
let's see.
well, I mean, how can I explain like what happened
To Max, when I hear, and I haven't just heard it from you, but when I hear
then?
stories like that,
Hmm.
it concerns me because for that to happen, for something to just be like toggling back and forth between not union and non-union, or oh, we made it union.
Yeah.
In my mind, what was happening was the job was fucking union in the first place, and they were hiring it out not, and trying to pay out non-union, and then it toggles over to like, oh yeah, I guess we'll just go through the proper channels and make it union.
I
In my mind, that's the only scenario in which that's possible for jobs to just magically flip back and forth between union and non-union like that.
right, but the project in play, like like these weren't things that were uh like like not something that had an actor in front of a set, not something that had like a grip, not something that had a cameraman. There's no director of photography. There's no, the director themselves is not ADG. You know, the I don't know what to say other than like there must be some sort of a way. And what I've heard is that companies that have a gig can, if they need to, process some payments slash hours through a related but separate entity that is signatory, and then that just goes through. And in that case, in those instances, it benefited me, but I don't know if would have benefited other artists. I don't know whether or not it always should have been like it probably since it's obvious that they could have done it. Yeah, I think you make a case that they should have done it and they should have been hiring a union artist in the first place. But Zach, this gets me back to where like to a bit of a conundrum. Like if it always was supposed to be a union thing in the first place and I wasn't a union artist for that client beforehand, then how would I have been in the job in the place to get that job in the first place? I still would have been on the outs. There would have been another artist in that place, and I would have been locked on the outside. So it's tricky. It's tricky to see how. Hey Talbot, we're I'm talking to my buddy Zach about hardcore biz
But,
stuff.
so what they're doing is a job that was supposed to be union. They're having people work at non-union, whether it's a union artist and they're telling them it's non-union, so they're not paying them the union rate and paying into their benefits, or they're hiring a non-union artist. One or the other. They're
Hmm.
taking a job that should be union and they're farming it out non-union.
Hmm.
That's at the bottom of it. And I hear what you're saying. Like, well, if I was a non-union worker, then maybe I wouldn't be getting that job in the first place. But that's the thing, though, is right now the way, by and large, the way it's working is that you still probably would. They'd still give it to you. I went
Well,
through an experience with an agency where they kept coming around, and I would ask them to they'd come around with a union project,
mhm.
and I'd say, "Oh, I'm not union," and they're like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "But you can submit a producer request," and like, "Nah, do you still want to work it?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? No, I want to join the union. Submit a producer request for me," and
Hmm.
then they'd fuck off, and then they'd come back around again and check in with me like, "Hey, we had another job. Like, cool,
Hmm.
submit the request," and then they wouldn't do it. And
Hmm.
like, and then that's why like I'm so vocal about, like, I know that these agencies are up to bullshit because I've
Hmm.
I've seen it myself and I hear stories, and I know
Hmm.
that work that should be union is going out non-union. And so when people tell me that the jobs are flipping back and forth between union and non-union, I know, oh, it's because it was originally a union job and they're just trying to avoid doing it right. And then the
I.
only reason I got into the union is because someone came around and I made them, and I've been with the director for a long time, and I
Hmm.
explained it. I don't know if I think I told you this story, Max, so
Hmm.
forgive me. But but yeah, I told him it's like it's kind of funny. not too long ago, the agency came around wanting me to do that commercial with you, where it was like about like people being able to get retirement and pensions and retirement plan, and now they keep coming around and they won't submit a producer request so I can work with you and get in the union and
Mm-hmm.
get retirement and pension. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, he's like that's what he said. Oh, that's slimy, bro, that's slimy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
then he was the one who like made the agency. Next time they came around, is like, look, I want to work with Zach. I'm tired
Mm-hmm.
of being told no.
Yeah.
Just pick up the phone and call the fucking agency.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's finally how it happened. But
Mm-hmm.
before that, several agencies were perfectly happy to come around and check in and be like, oh, not union. Oh, well, do you still want to work it? And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get in the union, so I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
call the
Right.
union. Let me work it the right way. And yeah, so there's a lot of that going on around out there.
I think it's clear
So
that especially in my case, like there was a lot of like ignorance as to what the options were, and the powers that be were using that to their advantage.
oh
And
yeah, oh
I
yeah.
th- and the more we can arm ourselves with this information, the better. But at the same time, I have to admit, I'm even just in my own circumstance, I'm pretty ignorant about what went wrong or what went right in my own case, um, and and I'm insanely curious about it because I want to be like an advocate for good, but like even like when it was happening, when it looked like the union work was panning out and it was working, I was afraid to even ask questions of my own clients that were giving me those hours because I didn't want to upset the apple cart. And
Right.
that there was like um, I knew that it felt like what I was getting was exceptional. It wasn't necessarily like other storyboard artists weren't getting the same treatment. I knew that other artists that were union at my agency were able to get union hours through the same client, but it felt like I had to flip that switch for everybody else, and then like my agent sort of forced it through as a result. But again, it's like that was then. I don't know, like that client is like entirely remote now. I think they do everything via outsourcing. They probably not a signatory anymore. Like those contracts don't last forever. They don't need to necessarily hire union artists anymore. And you know, though that business they can do business without ever shooting anything in America, let alone Los Angeles. It's just part of the fact of life. So I don't know what like everything needs leverage, right? How do you make those the changes that we need to happen? Like you need power. Like that's well, like I'm not, that's why I'm entirely just focused on like can we like supercharge artists to be even more powerful and relevant than we are, because that's I feel like that is the only way, union or not, we're going to actually get what we want. The way we get the union to listen to us is we could become more powerful on our own. The way we get the producers to give us what we need, we just simply become more powerful on our own. And it's never been harder given the advancement of AI being this giant boogeyman, but it's never been more necessary for for it to happen. So however it has to happen, it's got to happen. So hence the stream, hence Zach the guest star for the spirited discussion about the thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make these rocks green.
I Talbot, by the way.
Yeah, we're
Is Talbot a friend of yours, like a real life friend, or?
uh not in real life. Although it's funny because I'm like, do I have any real life friends other than Zach? And I feel like even then it's a stretch.
Oh, Ben's here.
Oh, Ben, hey. I'm glad we've got
Ben's
a
always here.
little crowd going on. I don't know. Ben might be lurking half the time. He might not be. I can't tell.
You
I
should
don't.
always assume Ben's around as a default state.
Yeah. I don't like pay attention to like what's happening like on the stream unless people are like actually chatting. There could be like 100 people. I wouldn't know it. But the that'd be wishful thinking or whatever. But if any way uh that I'm doing a little part and Zach is doing a much larger part. I feel like with the outreach and stuff to
And they're sucking me in at the union. By the way, they got their hooks in me. Like I just got an email today. Someone put my name forward for the DEI committee, and they're like, "So I
good.
heard that you're interested in the DEI committee. Are you gonna join that?" And I'm like, "Well, I
You're
just
like
said
I am
yes."
brown.
So yeah, I'm brown. Yep.
I'm brown. I'm down and I'm brown. Um,
So I'm on that. I'm on the Constitution committee.
okay, good. Well, it all
Yeah,
needs reform. Needs a.
it all does need reform. And I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. The people who show up in these meetings, you start seeing a lot of the same faces.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you, um, there are a couple times where I hear things out of people's mouths, and I'm like, ugh. But 90% of the time, people talk and behave like rational human beings who don't really have it out for anybody.
Mhm.
So when people are talking about like the unions, are corrupt or the union's not doing what it should be,
Mhm.
um, I think in my mind, like this game of Guess Who about like why it's not performing properly as a union. The game of Guess Who is getting pretty narrow now.
Okay. Okay,
Um,
that's good to hear.
yeah,
So it's not like
yeah.
watch your back,
Yeah,
necessarily. Yeah.
yeah. Like the people who are filling out these committees, and who are. I mean, look at our own IMA council members now are all definitely on the up and up. Like they're all
Mhm.
vetted and they're fighting for us and they're legit. So that checks out. The people on the Constitution Committee, like I said, they're not saying anything that's like raising alarms with me.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm gonna assume the DEI is the same. So
Mhm.
like going around, looking around, and finding out where the stinkers are, like in my mind, it's getting pretty narrow, and
Okay.
so it's not like the union is just full of like everyone is like corrupt. It's just like
Okay.
there's something afoul,
Yeah.
but it's limited to a few people who are in key positions. It would seem like
It's like
so.
making this out to be like something. It's like a Scorsese movie, or this is like The Departed or something like that. You've got to like get in and get undercover, and yeah, we need like another counterpart on the like the producer's end or something like that. Ben could be like I don't know. Ben works at a production company. He could.
Ben's been a double agent for a while now between
Yeah,
us and the
yeah.
studios.
He is. He is.
I,
He's the
I
secret.
strategically leak information to Ben so that he lets the studios know that we mean business,
There we go. There we go.
and he's gonna let them know that you know there's a new world out there for the studios that are willing to work with the unions instead of against them.
Hmm.
And we'll fucking bury the other ones.
That's right. That's right.
But
Well, Zach, do you have anything to say about my coloring? This is so
I
this should look like unimpressive as a
the
start,
fact that you
but
don't flat is like making me pull my hair out.
this is flat. This is flatting. This is
But
flatting.
you're like, oh, okay, I used the wrong term. The fact that you're not using like a lasso fill to flat is what's making me pull my hair out.
Oh, well, but I've got my these are like pixel locked because I've already did the fills to do the but me doing it by hand is your objection. No. That's
It
because the
isn't there like some kind of equivalent of like a lasso fill where like you select an area and then it just fills it with a color?
yeah, but
Like
that
you can
it
like draw an area to fill it. Go ahead.
yeah, but that's
Makes too much sense.
well, I mean, it makes sense for if like you draw with a mouse, but not if you have
No,
a
I draw with a
stylus.
pencil too. It's like you're lowering your mileage because every time you have to stroke back and forth to draw in the color,
No, man.
that's
You mean
mileage. You
yeah,
know.
but hey, baby, that's is it mileage, baby, or is it experience? Why cheapen the you change your frame of mind, right? Um, okay,
Gotcha.
here's some. No, I'm kind of joking. You're not the first person to say that, but I definitely uh, have some old school tendencies.
If it
Um,
makes you feel better, that's my only point of criticism because I have nothing else to say besides that. I can only criticize you on that one little tool
there's
usage. Other than
there's
that, like everything's
there's not too much to gush over, but like so. And again, I'm not a color genius, but the like knowing that Link is predominantly green, um, like then by extension, like me thinking about composition, then his adversary needs to be predominantly red, and then the other two colors that will make up like the midground and background therefore need to be some other variation that is not green and is not red, so that everything has a chance to stand out. And I knew that the foreground the midground color or the element was sand, so yellow was a natural choice for that, and that is not red or green. And so that meant that the far background needed to in itself be blue. So the color choices that I made were not choices; they were dictated by the fact that Link is green here, and that may also play into what happens here. But we may have other things at play as well. Um,
Oh, interesting. I see.
yeah.
Okay.
So like whereas like this normally, and it actually looks good. But we may get into a place where here that might cause problems because
Is that
I'm not going to have red skeletons, for instance. So we can see what
is
happens. I'll just go through it with a little bit of problem solving and logic. But I can't necessarily apply the same color decisions here. What were you going to say?
the first panel? The first panel. So is
Yeah.
the first panel finished colors?
No, no, no. This is these are essentially flats. There are some layers in which I've done a little bit of
Oh, I
ambient.
see. I see. I see.
Yeah, there's some ambient occlusion shading that has happened here, where essentially it's as if there was like a very light. This O layer, for instance, is like the
Is this on a
occlusion.
multiply layer, or how are you?
It
Which
is.
layer
It's
setting is?
right now it's set to multiply. Um,
Okay.
and then I can slide the opacity on it to increase or reduce the effect. But I had
Oh,
forgotten that normally I would flat the color
the
before.
overlay.
See, I only just this morning. I don't even know if Leah is Leah Mao. The first person who was in the chat was someone who had prompted me to consider doing color on all these images, and so many people had asked about it that I'm just like I should just color it because it's what the people want. But that was after I'd already started doing shading. But actually, the doing the occlusion shading is something that I would typically do after I do the flats. So this one's an
Right. Yeah.
exception where
Yeah.
I started doing some occlusion shading, and that's why they look a little more rendered here. But here, that'll come next is the occlusion shading, and then so here I'm converting some of these, and all of these fills were already done previously. So I had locked off those layers are locked off, and I can
Oh,
go in and
yeah. Pixel locked.
and that's
I
why
think every time Max says occlusion,
occlusion, ambient occlusion, yeah.
occlusion shading.
Um, that would be a fun thing
Hey,
to delve
hey,
into,
Boxer, can you
definitely.
tell us something embarrassing about Max?
He knows quite a few things. We'll see if he's in the chat
You
anymore,
don't have
but
to.
give him a second.
It doesn't have to be super embarrassing. Just moderately embarrassing. Just
Yeah,
something that he wouldn't want me to tell people, like if we were in a group setting.
we'll give him a second to chime in. he could
He's trying to think among the many things.
he's not in the AON Discord, but theoretically, I have my own
I don't know what you're talking
chat
about.
event. No, go okay, yeah. We don't talk about Fight Club, but the I have my own join Max Discord that
Oh, good.
theoretically down the
That,
road if we
that I
needed.
didn't get invited to. Okay,
Well, frankly, I don't
it's
do
awesome
anything
though.
in it, but no. Well, you're not excluded. Frankly, it's if
Just not included.
well, no. Let me just go ahead because enough people are. At least you're on it right now, and I can. Here, let me see here. Where's the general invite people? Okay, so this is
And report it and
link.
shut it down.
Yeah, the link will expire in 7 days, and I can just put it here, right? No, it doesn't do that. Why doesn't it do that?
You can usually put it in your own chat, in your own
Copy,
Discord
copied.
or your own Twitch chat.
Yeah, but it's not copying over, which is so strange.
Oh.
Yeah, come on, dude, and then dude doesn't want to do it. I click copy, copied, but maybe I can change this. But then you guys can't. What is the solution? Darn it! Boxer, if you're still in, because he has the invite, or he's in the thing, and he seems to be able to do it. I don't know why it doesn't work for me. I've tried this before, and it doesn't work. Yeah, it's odd. But whatever.
Well, you could post a link in the other Discord, and I'll post it in the
Oh
chat.
yeah, maybe I can do that. Let's just see. Maybe that's a great here. This will be under here, just right where we were. Is it voice chat text? Yeah. No, that's a different one. Let me find it. And those will be a project for another day, but it's definitely a cool idea. Why is it so hard? Too many
changes. I have to leave soon. I have to.
Yeah, no worries. Now, yeah.
Be...
Let me post this thing. You can join my thing, and then you can split. I shouldn't take forever either. Okay, there it is. So it's in the streamers and creators channel of our secret fight club. Under my name.
Gotcha. Okay, I see it.
Everybody's eating dinner. That's why no one's Oh, did you join already? Oh, there you are. Wave to say hi. There you are. Welcome, you crazy kid. All right, cool. Boxer, are you able to post the Discord thing?
Oh yeah, I can post it if he doesn't want to post.
Oh, now you can do it. Yeah, why don't you do it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
I didn't like blind you or anything obnoxious like that.
Discord invite link.
Yeah, I don't know why you can do it. It's up for set. It'll be
disable.
Yeah, you're gonna raid all.
You didn't disable chatters from posting links, which is Twitch faux pas. Because now people can come in here and post spam.
Yeah, but
links.
Yeah, but I like that. I like to live dangerously and click like other people's. Gotcha. Yeah, I do. I like to live dangerously.
Phishing scams.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really run like obviously anybody who clicks and is suspect is no one clicks on their thing. Everybody's been through their own thing. It's like, wow, I can make money here. Click this thing. It's like no one's gonna fall for that.
Hey Max, are you gonna be streaming for a while? Because we can make Ben join you on voice chat.
Ben, you want to join voice chat for a bit? And
Ben, can you please come in here and annoy Max?
If he's
annoying, but think of things to be annoying with.
If he's available, I'll chat with Ben, and then you can split.
You can't right now.
You can't right now. Yeah, I don't think it's too uncommon or anything like that. But it's all good. Listen, Zach, you can split, man. You can split. I did a little coloring. Yeah, you can do it. Okay. You know what? I'll allow it.
I'll put in I
appreciate the discourse. This is good stuff. This is good use of the tech. This is the mission. Spread the word. I'm sure everybody already checked out by now anyway, but the it's good for me. It's good for me to practice the banter.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ben's lurking. All right. Let me see if I can color up this one a little bit and discuss some of the color theory. But Zach, you are dismissed. You are dismissed. I'm going to put on the Zelda music. That'll be your cue.
Thanks, boss. Bye. Yeah. Bye, chat.
I'm going to play Zach out with a little. There you go. All right. Well, I can talk now, finally, about the work that I'm doing. Holy moly. What a bunch of BS. Can you believe the stuff that guy says? All right. So similarly to how I did it before, having already set up all these fills, that's the hard work. Doing the line work and the fills, that's... In some ways, it's just tracing. In some ways, it's just coloring within, filling in between the lines. But there's a lot of work involved there that once it's out of the way, I find the coloring process to actually be fairly fun and easy. It can just be like experimental. So these will be flats, and yeah, just follow the pattern that we have here. Hi, Kiki. I've got colorful lights going on. You want to come inside for a second? What are you doing?
Just going to like go potty, okay?
Okay. I'll help you. Let me know when you're done. My adorable daughter is going to use the potty. So we had a previous solution with the color in that first image, but now we've got a different subject, different colors of different other monsters. So now what do we do? Well, we'll figure it out. Kiki, are you ready? Okay, here I come. Give me 2 seconds, y'all. Yeah, the coloring at this stage is not necessarily super tricky. It'll be like, well, Max, if this is your coloring process, then I've got nothing to learn here. But it'll be the next few rounds where we'll see the difference happen. I'm not sure if it's coming across on the stream, but there's a little bit of instability to the, like, if I don't know if anybody can see like shaking on the camera and the monitor. I need to do more to ground my system a little bit better. I typically use a lot of putty to sort of offset any wobbliness on my Cintiq. I think maybe on another stream I'll show off some of the ways I've got everything tied down and set up the new system, but I'm still working out some of these bugs. Dark leather boots. Realistically, I won't have time to do much. I'll color this link and then I'll pause the I'll just end the stream because it's getting about the point where I should get my kids home and get them into bed because I'm still at my parents' house. But the adventure will continue. Maybe not tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. We'll see how it goes. But anybody who's curious to eventually be chatting on stream, I'm certainly down to talk to other artists on future streams. The Discord invite is right there. And yeah, would be fun. It's funny, color picking is I guess its own lost art. necessarily good at it, but I don't think you don't necessarily need to get super bogged down with colors being exact, not with my process. It won't be clear here, but maybe it is becoming clearer with the way I've just talked about it, but I'm way more interested in the relationship between the colors than the colors themselves. That's the entire process as far as I'm concerned. But something I'm extremely pleased about is we're on the new system, we're drawing, we're coloring on a big old file, much bigger than I would use for work. Things that would normally tax the shit out of my old computer system. This new system is handling just fine, and that's exciting for me to not feel like I'm held back by all kinds of hardware limitations, software limitations, things that I can't control. Zach had a point about the lasso tool, but there's room in my process for organic mistakes. And I feel like if I'm gonna make a mistake, I want it to be done with my fingers and not my mouse. There's these protective guards on his forearms that are kind of a different color than his gloves. It looks like actually that's interesting. Is that like that? Tricky, but I know his gloves are kind of fingerless. So we'll get this effect. Looking pretty good. All right, let's do some shield stuff. I'm just going to borrow the same colors I did here. Luckily, I'm drawing, in both of these instances, it's the back of the shield, so we don't have to draw an entire crazy shield design. That wouldn't be the end of the world, but certainly would slow me down. Okay, alright, that's a good enough place. Made a dent with the color. It doesn't take a long time to obviously get the flats in when you've already done all the hard work of setting all the boundaries, doing the lines, doing the fills. Once you do the lines, the fills are like nothing, mentally speaking. It's not gonna challenge anybody to fill in lines. And then by extension, once those pixels are locked off, you just do the color pretty easily. You could tell I got a little sloppy with it. Doesn't matter, still looks good. We're going to go through and hit all of these so that there's color on everything. And we'll have flat color versions of the entire process. And then we go in, add the ambient occlusion. Then we've got some secret stuff that will blow minds. Minds will explode, but that'll be down the road a bit. So I'm going to call it a stream. Thanks, anybody, if you're out there. I think this has been fun. Sorry for the talk. Some people just don't shut up, but we'll forgive them. And all right, later, Ben. Zach, if you're listening, thanks for coming by. Boxer, thank you for dipping your beautiful head into my camera view. And everyone else, thanks for popping by. And I'll try to do this again before long, because I feel like I'm on a roll. And I love this project. So we'll see. Till then, thanks so much, and catch you next time. Bye.